lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
And a half-second lead. Oh, with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody, and for the final time this year, welcome to the Automobilista Australia GT3 Sprint Series for 2020, proudly brought to you by Antara, Resort Style Living. Well, for the umpteenth time in as many seasons, minus one, it comes down to tonight. The Grand Finale, the Grand Final, or the Big Dance, whatever you want to call it. It is the championship deciding race to end the season, and only two men have the opportunity to try and claim the unique GT3 series in sprint format for this year. It's down to Will Devenish and Pete Savage. Lamborghini versus Bentley, and two 30-minute sprint races around this North American twistiness of a circuit. Road Atlanta is the venue. We've already been here a couple of weeks ago for the Porsche Cup round. What has the American circuit got in store tonight? Well, we will find out, and by about 2 hours from now, we will have ourselves a very deserving GT3 Sprint Series champion. My name is Steve DeVries, and it's a pleasure to introduce the two men that have occupied the commentary box with me on so many occasions this year, Michael the Flubman Zalavari and Josh Bagsy Bags. Gents, we're in for a corker of a night.
Yeah, we certainly are. Hello, Nether. Hello, Floody. Season finale here, Road Atlanta, and it's looking to be a very interesting race. We've got, as you said, the two guys vying for the title, vying for a prize for the first time this season, thanks to our sponsor. And once again, coming down to the last race, and absolutely all to play for, not just for leaders, but further down in the field as well. We'll get to that a bit later, but yeah, it's looking forward to another brilliant sprint series in this machinery, and it's a bit sad to be saying goodbye to them for the year.
Yeah, I'll echo that statement. Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Bagsy. Good evening, everyone at home. Yeah, Road Atlanta, one of my favorite tracks that we're finishing the series at. And if we get any sort of racing close to what we've seen in this season, we've seen last lap battles at Okayama, at Suzuka, at Bahrain last time out, and when we went to where else were we going to do? Phillip Island as well, and what's the last track that I'm definitely forgetting off the top of my head?
Well, we'll have a look at that
anyway,
in just a second, but you're right. We've been here, there, and everywhere.
We've had such an amazing season, all things considered. We've had such a great quality of driving, and it will be a real shame to shelve these cars for the rest of the year. So let's hope we get to send them out with a bang tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. And, well, we won't waste any time because we're not too far away from diving into the qualifying session. But, Flood, let's have a look at this racetrack. As we said, we've been here in Porsche Cup not too long ago. The 4-kilometre, 16-turn Road Atlanta circuit. Some people think that this place resembles a pork chop. Some people think it resembles a lamb chop. Some people think that the Americans can't name corners properly or number corners properly. But nonetheless, there is everything at this place. There's some long straights, there's the S's, there's chicanes, there's fast flowing bends. And on top of that, there's elevation as well. So this is a challenge. It was a very, very big challenge for the Porsche Cup guys to get their heads around how the GT3 boys going to go tonight.
Yeah, it is a really challenging circuit. And honestly, if you said to me you had to choose one track to sim lap around for the rest of your life, I would choose this track. It is by far one of the best circuits in the world. The GT3 cars are a little nicer here than the Porsche Cup. The Porsche Cup cars are quite on edge. We've seen the GT3 guys get a lot more consistency out of their tires and out of their stints. But expect to see a few track cuts, a few people hitting the sausage curbs, finding them very, very difficult to get a handle on. But all in all, the feedback from everyone so far tonight is that it is a beautiful track to be driving in the seat of a GT3 car. So we should see some absolutely cracking battles tonight because everyone is on pace at this circuit.
Yeah, there's been some really fast lap times. There's some guys at the very top. I'm looking in practice, the top 7 guys covered by a half second. So, and all inside the 17s as well. So there's a lot to play for tonight, especially if any of those guys in that top, 7 or 8 spots can hook a lap up. Anything is going to go any number of which ways in this qualifying session that we are literally about to get into in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting on server timing to tick over and then to see who will be the first man to get out onto the track surface. And I think we are just about ready to go here, guys.
Yeah, it looks like we've got Turmo heading to the end of the lane now. The clock hasn't started yet, but he's going to be the first one to turn a wheel in anger in the qualifying session. Remember, only one lap is all you get. You get your out lap, your main lap, and then your in lap. So if you get a track cut, you're done. If you go off, you're done. That's it. You've got one shot at qualifying.
Yeah, that's been the unique thing about this series, hasn't it, guys? I mean, we've gone from having the longer distance World Series format with, an open qualifying session for as many laps as you can squeeze in to the one lap dash, really trying to squeeze up the field and, mix it up a little bit. And the man who's going out right now, Turmo, he actually put in a pretty decent marker in the qualifying runs at the last round at Bahrain in the first race. Sort of really sent the cat amongst the pigeons in that first qualifying session for the race 1 last round.
Yeah, he did an absolutely stellar job. A little bit of a surprise. That Viper maybe hasn't had the best outright pace as he just nicks the wall coming down the hill on his out lap. So he'll have to deal with a little bit of front end damage for his lap. But based on his results last week, it was quite an impressive result. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite able to convert that into as good a race result, falling down the order in the first race. But still, Turmo, he's had a quietly achieving season this year in the Viper.
He hasn't done too bad at the Viper for this season, and of course we also had Rhodey and Glenn Miles have been pilots of that Viper in the Sprint Series as well. Brenton Foley, limited running in the Viper and Sprint Series, but was the sole pilot for the Viper, if memory serves me correctly, for the World Series that finished in the middle of this year. So it has had its day, and some guys love it. A bit of a love-hate relationship, I think, that car.
Yeah, fair enough. Just as we get the first guys starting their qualifying lap, we'll take you through the sector markers. Sector 1 ends just on the exit of what is turn 5, the uphill left-hander that brings you onto the shorter of the 2 back straights. Sector 2 is the long back section that brings you just before the dive into the chicane, and then the final sector is that swoop through the chicane and over the hill to the line. Brendan Ross is the first one on a quality lap. He's just coming through to that first sector mark now. Very frantic at the wheel for Brendan Ross, and he hits that first sector mark with a 30.13.
Not a terrible first sector by any stretch of the imagination. Did look like he had a bit of a fight on his hands coming down the S's, though, in that first sector. Car a little bit twitchy getting into the bottom end of the circuit. But now he can relax, take a bit of a sip of the drink, and prepare himself for the chicane with this long, curving straight. Pretty much almost don't really realise the corners are even there.
It seems like he has gone for a bit of a lower downforce setup to help him on the straights, because the back of that GTR is very twitchy, which is not something you usually see from the GTR. You planted at the back with that large rear wing that you could play cricket on. But he does seem to be struggling a lot with the rear end, so maybe looking to do some big moment there. Slides across the line with a 118 dead.
18 flat, not a bad effort, considering he was purple through the middle sector, and the guys behind him, Hans Brunswick was the only one to better him in the first sector. Uja Mishra in 19.1, he's had some limited running, so slots in provisionally
Hans
P2.
Only a 10th off coming through the second sector as well, so he's a very short final sector. He's going to come across the line.
He's done an 18 flat as well. Of a second.
Wow.
That's as close.
That is almost as close as you can get.
Very, very close on top. As we cycle through the field to see who the next man is, there's plenty of guys going out. Steve Burko on the move as well. With the Loose Sim Sport Bentleys fighting for the team's title here, not just in the team standings, but also it's Pete Savage and the Loose Sim Sport Bentley fighting for the driver's title, which we will have a bit of a look at the driver's points between qualifying and race 1 to give you the lowdown and how all that stands.
Just look at these split times. Zach Ross, 7,000th better than Brendan Ross through the first sector. They're all so close at this track.
Yeah, and there's been, I think having the permanent server has allowed a lot of people a lot of running, and because this track is just so much fun to run at, everyone's really taken that opportunity. We've got Steve Burko and Peter Savage coming around to start their flying laps shortly. They've both been very, very quick in that Bentley. Steve Burko finding some real pace at the back end of this season. He was fighting with Will Devenish at the back end of last round, so expect to see him in the mix tonight. I just wanted to point out for Hans's lap, he is 0.003 of a second behind Brendan Ross's time, and that was all lost in the second sector. Poor exit for Hans coming out of that turn 7, it's called, the one that brings you onto that back straight, was the difference for him to lose that pole position provisionally with a purple first and third sector at this stage for Hans.
Tim Redmond's about to start his lap, but also the man who is the hunter in the championship at the moment, Pete Savage. So this will be is starting his lap now. So this will be an interesting mark to see what the number 88 Bentley Continental can do. Will Devenish yet to leave the lane. We've got about half the drivers that are either on track or who have set a time already. All
just quickly, Steve,
well up
Steve
on the curve.
Steve Burko, the first sector mark, 16 thousandths away from Brendan Ross's pole time.
It's amazing.
Pete Savage up, though.
Peter Savage is half a second up.
Wow.
Big
4
margin.
tenths.
As a fellow commentator who's commentating in supercars would say, the big guns are starting to arrive, and this is one of them, and he's laid down a very, very impressive marker to the first sector. Purple, and by some considerable margin. Ironically, the purple middle sector belongs to his teammate Zach Ross, who's currently set up in P3, but we'll get a read on whether that mark has been bettered, and it's going to be bettered by a long, long way. He's found some more time. Purple in the middle sector now for Peter Savage, and just a corner to go.
Burko's just slotted into third, 18.1, not quite the same pace he needed at the second half of the lap.
Going to be about 17.4 at this rate, and it's a 16.8. He found a ton of time through the final sector.
That is huge. Oh, that's incredible.
First man into the 16s all night long, if you don't mind. What a moment to pull it out.
And what a statement as well. That's a real statement of intent from Peter Savage, saying this championship battle is not going to go away quietly for him. A bit of a problem last week, had a DNF, so he's really pulled out the stops for tonight.
Oh, yeah, and some.
Well, now it's the one to look to is Devenish, who's on his outlap now with 3 minutes remaining.
Yeah.
He is he's getting out the way of someone who was
it's Greg Turra, actually. So, yeah, there was a bit of
Greg
an
Turra
awkward
was
moment.
on his fast lap and lost it there and almost ran into the back of Devenish. So that
Now,
was very close to disaster.
Yeah, let's go and have a bit of a look at that on the replay, because that was worth a look, because Bolger was a bit further down the road. Devenish had plenty of space, so this is the viewpoint from Greg Turra. There's Will Devenish ahead, and you're right, Devenish on an outlap, Turra on a flyer. Okay, so Will has moved over, and Turra's lost it. So I don't think that's any fault of Will there.
Oh, definitely not.
I was hoping that it was not going to be a case of impeding. You don't want to be doing that at this particular junction.
So close. Came so close to disaster though. If Turra had hit him there and cost Devenish his rear wing, then that's his only chance of doing a lap gone, and he'd be starting from the back.
Yeah, it could have been big drama at the very beginning of the night, and through no fault of his own either. But we're going to get a chance to watch him now as he sets off in pursuit of this awesome 1:16.872 that Pete Savage has laid down. Bolger's out there, so too Lime Mitch. Debut winner in GT3 last round out as well. Lime Mitch finally broke that hoodoo of the 4th place finishes and got himself a race win in race 2. Roadies out there as well. Just Lewis Wedding and Noah Turra yet to take to the track to set some times. Not sure if they're going to start rear or not. Devenish is in the game, but he's got to find a little bit more time than that.
Yeah,
it's going to be down to the last sector, because that is where Peter Savage did a monster last sector that no one's got close to tonight.
Devenish is remarkably smooth though. I've run on board with him through the first sector and through those 2 corners, and everything has been perfect. No power oversteer, no snapping at the wheel. It has been smooth as silk as he comes up to the 2nd sector mark. He's going to touch it, and he's 41 thousandths of a second behind. This is where it's going to be tough, though.
Purple
Savage
middle.
had a great final sector.
Purple middle for Will Devenish on that time as well. It was purple by about, looking at the math here, about a tenth of a second. So he's spent some time. He's got on the marbles, though. He had a moment getting on the marbles on the run down to the final corner. Is it going to be enough? No. Lost the time. That's what killed it for him. Getting offline out of the chicane. And it's a moment, it's a provisional front row start for Will Devenish. So it's not the end of the world, but he would have preferred P1 against that car's name for sure.
Yeah, big snap just as it came over the crest, and that sent him to the inside, and he just couldn't recover. 3/10 lost in that final sector. So, yeah, unlucky for but he's provisionally on the front row. And at the moment, Mitch is on his lap, hasn't quite got the first sector nailed. So we'll see what that Bentley can do in a straight line.
It was a 10th down on Devenish through the first sector, so see what he does in the second sector. Yeah, he's 3/10 down. But looking at third here, there's a big gap of almost a second between second and third that Mitch can slot into here if he manages to do this last sector perfectly.
New livery on the car for this time, this final round as well. You'll notice there's a number of 4 written on that car, and that's in tribute to him breaking his hoodoo. So it goes P3, not P4, ironically, after we're talking about 4s.
Well, we've still got Lewis Wedding out on track, who will be looking to push Mitch down into 4th.
Yep, and Noah Tara has elected not to partake in qualifying, it appears. So it looks like he's going to start rear of grid. And Lewis Wedding's in the game here for third place, potentially as well. If not, if he can pick up an extra little bit, and maybe not make the same mistake that Will Devenish did coming out of the chicane, he might be on for a provisional front row here as well. Can Lime Mitch and Lewis Wedding be the championship disruptors tonight? They're in the top 5, so they're not playing for, just who can get a better position tonight. Those guys are actually playing for points as well.
Yeah, they're playing for third in the championship, and it's important for them to get as many points as they can on each other too, to be on the podium in terms of the championship. And we saw Mitch had a massive turn of pace at Bahrain, coming third and first, definitely breaking his 4th hoodoo there in emphatic fashion as Wedding goes across the line and takes third. So Mitch goes to 4th, as is tradition, but we've seen that he can definitely improve from there in the last race. And if it's anything like Bahrain, then the guys at the front will have something to worry about, especially Pete Savage, because he needs wins.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, certainly
he
does.
Wins. Big time.
Interesting thing to note as well, the fastest outright pace in that session in terms of top speed was, again, Lime Mitch in that BMW, who starts in 4th, but it is a front row with our 2 championship contenders. Peter Savage and Will Devenish have been locked at the horns for the entire season, and they will start off tonight once again sharing that front row. Guys, it's an absolute match made in heaven at this point, isn't it, between these two?
Well, it sure
can't
is.
get enough of each other.
They can't get enough of each other, and it sure is. And that's a beautiful segue, Floody, because we'll go and have a look at these point standings coming into tonight, and we will update these at the halfway point so you can get an idea of how the lay of the land sits. So, as it stands, coming into tonight, that is your standings. Bagsy, 9 points. It is far from over.
Yeah, it's very close. And as I was saying before, the real nuts and butts of it all is Peter Savage. If he wins both races, he wins the championship. There is 9 points between them and 5 points difference between first and second place. So Will can't afford to just follow Pete home and expect to win the championship, because Pete will beat him by 1 point. So that's the simplest version of it. Then there's plenty of other permutations depending on what happens if they both get passed by, say, Lime Mitch and Lewis Wedding. We said just before that they were fighting for third in the championship. Only 6 points between them as well. And Bolger is right there as well. Even Brendan Ross with the outside chance if the 3 ahead of him have issues. It's going to be interesting. And as you said, Nether, we're going to update this in the middle, but it is all to play for both first place and third place in this championship. So, yeah, don't expect Lime Mitch and Lewis Wedding to be kind to the guys at front just because they're battling for a championship. In fact, they might use it to their own advantage, and knowing that those guys don't want to be too, they don't want to risk losing out on a race, because the DNF here ends it potentially for both of them, more so for Pete Savage than Will Devenish, but it will make it an uphill slog for Devenish. For Pete, it will definitely absolutely destroy any chance, but neither of them want DNF, so they might be more liable to just sort of let the other guy through as long as they're still ahead of their championship rival.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Bagsy. And on top of that as well, Pete Savage has been the dominant man when it comes to pole positions this year or this season as well. He had a record pole winning streak going, I think, until we got to Phillip Island, which is when that streak was broken. And he's quite comfortably got the pole position award, if you can call it that, in his back pocket coming into tonight anyway. And this just his performance tonight just confirms it. But we take a look at
I think he actually had it up round 4.
I think he probably did, actually. But then you take a look at the rest of these points. So Lai Mitch and Lewis Wedding sharing a row as well. As we said, those guys are playing for third place in the championship. Steve Bolger starting, I think, down in around the mid-pack, about P8, I think, from memory.
Yes.
As well. He's still in that fight as well for third in the championship. So don't discount him if something goes wrong for a couple of the top guys. He can still steal a couple of points. Brendan Ross and Steve Burko are still within striking distance of him as well. They're battling for their own private battle on 6th and 7th. The Turras are battling for their own private battle, all for father and son bragging rights, I think we probably should call it, in 8th and 9th place as well. So there are all sorts of things that can change throughout tonight. Just by, even after race 1, we're going to have all sorts to be talking about and a very huge amount of quick points calculations to be doing as well. We're going to take a look at the team standings coming in as well. That's a little more straightforward, but it still is up for grabs. So the loose SimSport Bentleys, of which there are 3 tonight, and the Wedding Crashers Racing Lamborghinis, of which there are 3 tonight, are still locked in combat for overall honours in the team standings. We don't really pay particularly much attention to these standings, guys, but even so, looking at that list there is still positions that will likely change between now and the end of the night. Now, we won't update these points coming into tonight because that's really not where our focus is. Our focus is more so on the individual drivers' championships, Flood.
Yeah, and it is a little bit of a shame that the team's points go a little under the radar. I think part of that might be because of team people dropping off throughout the season. So, Matt Harvey, Reparo, and Tune, we haven't seen either of their drivers out for a while. Gravel Rash Racing has been at one driver for a little while. Team Antaro, with Mike getting stuck over in Britain, he hasn't been able to race, so that's been one car for a while. So that kind of does take the shine off it. But if you look at the top of the table, Loose SimSport with the 3 Bentleys and Wedding Crashers Racing with the 2 Lamborghinis, they have been the forces to be reckoned with the whole season long. And it is still all to play for. Hans and Burko have got quite a lot of pace tonight, enough for both of them to be in that front battle as well. So there is an additional element for them to not just be in the mix for their own interests, but to play the support role to the team leaders who are fighting it out for their own championship as well. And I wonder how much the championship is going to get into the minds of Devenish and Peter Savage. We've seen Devenish in this position before in other series, but this is a new element for Savage. He hasn't been in an AMS Oz series where he's been in the championship fight at the last round. So I wonder if that gets into his mind and starts to affect his decision-making as the race goes on, because it could really throw out something unexpected as we approach the climax of what has been an awesome year of GT3 racing in AMS Oz.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. We've got a fair bit to go through between now and the end of proceedings tonight, but it has been a sensational year of GT3 racing, and it's been a sensational 3 years just in general of endurance racing in AMS Oz as well. We've been pretty fortunate here, the Outworld Broadcasting Channel, to have so many of these incredible moments that you just can't script. And well, Steve Bolger getting his first championship in the World Series on a Monza fuel economy run, we just couldn't script.
I was literally just about to say, what have been your favourite moments from this year? And that was the first one that came to mind.
I think that's the one that sticks with all of us, because Monza has delivered so many different things over the years to us in general. We've seen chaos. We've seen one-lap dashes to the line on a green-white checker finish. That particular race that Steve Bolger won on the fuel economy run, for the opening 2/3 of the race, nobody wanted to lead it. There was we couldn't. Someone would lead for about 2 laps, and then they dropped to the back of a pack, and then it was only in the last 15 or so minutes that everything started to become apparent that guys were not going to be able to make it on fuel.
And I still remember that last lap of Bolger running around at 3/4 pace for most of it, just basically running it at the top of 6th gear through all the corners just to try and get it home. That was one of the I think I blew out my voice that night. I think my housemate yelled at me afterwards to shut up because that was just astonishing, the climax of that race. It's one of the craziest finish I think I've ever seen in any form of motorsport, let alone AMS Oz.
That's it.
We also had some crazy close finishing as well in both the Sprint Series and the World Series. I think we had the equal second closest finish in AMS Oz history was it last time at Bahrain, or was it? It can't have been at Bahrain.
It was a little bit early. It was Suzuka. We had
that was it.
Equal second closest finish for GT3. It's not quite the record for AMS Oz, but I think it was .094 was the finishing margin after 30 minutes. Was quite incredible. Bagsy, you've got probably, I think, an eye for statistics and things, since you keep a lot of notes. What's been your highlight of this year so far?
Oh, it's hard to say. Monza is the one that, you can't. I think every time it's come up, Monza's almost always the answer, and it's probably, of all the races we've had, it's the only one I've gone and watched back multiple times, just because it's such a enjoy. Not because I like hearing the sound of my own voice, but just because it's such a good race to watch, and it just has such a massive climax at the end there that it's hard to beat. It reminds me of when Rossi won the Indy 500 on a fuel economy. He's just rolling it down the back straight. It's a little bit like that, and it's hard to go past. But then a couple of the breakout victories we've seen, Lime Mitch and his victory in comes to mind just last round, and also Noah Tara's run in the very first round with his brilliant defensive driving when we're at Okayama was a sight to behold as well. And that's, if I put a favourite driving moment here, it's probably that performance by Noah Tara.
Yeah, there's been some really good youngsters that are starting to step up into AMS Oz. Noah Tara is one of them. He's sort of been on our radar for a little while after his performance last year at Jerez, where he led a good portion of that race and was in good position, just made a couple of silly little mistakes. But he's been somebody we've been keeping an eye on for a while. And there's a number of guys that are coming through as well in supercars and Porsche Cup. They're really starting to apply their trade, and they're going to be some guys starting to threaten the big guys that have got most of the wins under their belt in the next sort of 12 to 18 months or so, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to track back a little bit and talking about individual defensive efforts. Taking us back to the World Series back at Donington, Wayne Spencer's defense first of Lewis Wedding and then Will Devenish in that race. I think that race single-handedly made Lewis Wedding decide to never race GT3 again in that series. He graduated from the Nether School of Defensive Driving that race, did Wayne Spencer, and that's another really interesting defensive drive that I can remember. But on the of up-and-coming talents, we got Tim Redmond racing tonight. He's at McLaren. He's been doing work both here and in the Porsche, the Boxer Cup, powered by Antara, which is running on the adjacent night. So he's definitely one to look for in AMS Oz for the future. It's been a really nice sort of environment to watch these people new to the series really grow into challenging these front guys in the best way possible. I think the GT3 Sprint Series and the Boxer Cup are the two ones I've been keeping a very close eye on. I've heard similar things from supercars. There's a lot of camaraderie between the front guys and the back guys, bringing the whole series closer together, and it's just a really nice atmosphere to be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a lot of camaraderie that's been formed with a lot of the new guys and a lot of the guys that have been in the series since day dot pretty much as well. And they've really made a lot of these new guys feel at home and have got to know how they race and how to drive around each other too. And what's brought the group together a lot has been some of these driver training nights that have been coming up every now and again to teach guys a little bit more about defensive driving or how to race around other people, how to give space and things like that. And it's proven to be, I think, a bit of a gift for a number of people to learn something new and really feel accepted into the group. And the one thing that the group, AMS Oz, was worried about this year was the switch to Tuesday nights for GT3s rather than the Sunday slot it's been at for the last 2 years. And it's proved to be a smash hit with 2 or 3 max grids at some of the circuits we've done, and very, very highly supported and popularly supported for the year. So to all the drivers, we couldn't thank you enough for everything that you've put in to make this series what it is. I mean, we broadcast it, but it's you guys that steal the show.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have a broadcast that's nearly as fun nor exciting without the racing that gets produced week in and week out by these guys. And it's really been a privilege to be a part of this community and to be calling these races, to be entrusted with this race as we get the grid rolling away for the first of 2 races for the GT3 Sprint Series finale tonight.
Yes, here we go. It's the final. It's all to play for, and our 2 championship leaders are on the front row. Peter Savage once again on pole position. It's not a surprise at this point. It's almost expected. Alongside Will Devenish, our 2 protagonists for first in the championship. Behind them, though, the secondary story, but we'll still be keeping an eye on it. Lewis Wedding versus Lime Mitch for third in the championship. Brendan Ross qualifies 5th, and Hans Brunswick shares the row with him in 6th. Steve Burko and Steve Bolger, it's an all-Steve row. Tim Redmond and Zach Ross in 9th and 10th. Rujit Mishra and Termo in 11th and 12th. Cracker is in 13th. Greg Tara is in 14th. Luke Joyner in 15th. And Brody in 16th, with Kawatara and the field in 17th. And if we just quickly go back to, I forgot to mention it, but Lime Mitch in 4th in the 4th car. It's all coming together perfectly in that regard. But yeah, I just went through that quickly so we can go back to these 2 guys at the front. Peter Savage, the undisputed 1-lap pace man this series, and has absolutely led from the front in most regards. Both of these guys have an equal amount of DNFs, so this is really just all down to who is going to be the fastest today. And it's been, I'll echo what you guys said, it's been brilliant to commentate this series, brilliant to watch these guys race, and got 2 more races to go to decide who's going to win.
That's it. 17 cars for the final 2 races of the season. Interesting to note, for the equal amount of DNFs that Devenish and Savage have, they also have an equal amount of race wins, and they have there's only one slight difference, and it's Will Devenish has 1 more podium finish than Pete Savage. That's it. Will has not been off the podium aside from his DNF, where Pete Savage has had the DNF and a 5th to go. But we are away, and Savage gets the whole shot and gets the whole shot comfortably on the run to turn 1. All looks pretty sane so far. Back behind him, everybody pretty well behaved. Lime Mitch looks like he's rounded up Lewis Wedding for 3rd place already, and is already trying to get onto the back of the Lamborghini of Will Devenish. But Savage already starting to stretch his legs out in front.
Yeah, horrible start for Lewis Wedding. He's lost 3 places off the start to Brunswick, Burko and Mitch. That is not what he wanted, and now there's no way past here at the stage. He's got shuffled out and sent back down the field.
And not a great start for Will Devenish either. He's already lost a 2nd to Pete Savage in the lead, but importantly hasn't lost position. So he's still stalking the Bentley, and he's got Lime Mitch and Steve Burko, the flies in the ointment, just behind him.
Was all single file coming down through the S's as well. Not very many positions changing. There's a little bit of jockeying going back and forth behind these guys right now that I'm looking at, with Zach Ross and Tim Redmond having a little bit of an exchange, and Steve Bolger looks like he's trying to make a move down the inside of Brendan Ross. There he is. There's Wedding going toe-to-toe with Hans Brunswick, just pulls back into line, and here's Brendan Ross having to defend from Steve Bolger, who did start in 8th.
A little bit of a slide from Rossi. He's run off the outside of the curb. This is going to put him on the outside, coming back down the hill. This is dangerous. He's on the outside.
Yeah, Bolger's backed out because the drivers have been warned about no side-by-side running through the final corner, with the exception of the final lap, because they don't want to be wrecking another driver's race, getting early going here. So Bolger saw that he wasn't going to make the move, was pretty sensible about it, and backed out, but it cost him a spot to Tim Redmond, and that's awfully close. There was a bit of contact between left front and right rear just as they were getting into the braking zone of the S's. Now Zach Ross tried to bite it around the outside, couldn't make it stick. Nugent Mishra has now gotten himself all over the rear wing of Zach Ross's Bentley.
Yeah, very
got
willing in the
from
mid-pack battle here.
Yeah, from 8th down to 14th, they're all in a row together as Termo's having a go on Nugent Mishra now. Nugent Mishra going from attacker to defender.
Looking over
Termo's
and under.
nicely done there.
He's going to get him on the over and under. And no, there's a little bit of contact, little bit of hip and shoulder.
And then Greg Turner is just going to fly straight past, and it's going to create a bit of a backlog here because these guys are all checked up. Bit of contact from Luke Joyner and Cracker as they go through. Mishra is a sitting duck here. He's going to get the pace down quickly. And look at Noah Turra on the inside as he goes onto the grass. They're 4 wide down the back
Joyner
straight.
threads the gap there. I can't believe he made it through there. He's probably a bit angry at Mishra for just blocking him so much there. Mishra goes very deep on the brakes and off the track.
And
Brennan Ross
Yeah,
just
Rossi-
ahead. Now they're going to go side by side down the final corner again. Touch between Rossi and Redmond.
And that is so close to being, a disaster at the final corner between these guys. These guys have got nothing to lose. The only person who does have something to lose is Greg and Noah Turra because they're fighting for their own, what you call inter-family rivalry going on here. At the moment, Turra's managed to Noah Turra, that is, has managed to extricate himself from this calamity and is clearing away and trying to catch up onto the back of his father, who in turn is catching up onto the back of Zach Ross.
And if we just leave this battle quickly, sorry to jump in over the top of you, Bagsy, and look, 5 seconds up the road already, we've got Lewis Wedding hounding the back of Hans Brunswick, Burko all over the rear of Liam Mitch, and then the battle at the front has already compressed back down to under a second. Will Devenish hunting that big Bentley out in front of Peter Savage for the race win.
Important thing though, it's lap 3 and Wedding is not able to get past Hans Brunswick. That Lamborghini is very fast in a straight line, and Lewis is struggling. As soon as he pulls out the slipstream, he just loses all his pace. So potentially, as fastest lap
Changes.
for Savage, immediately beaten by Devenish. So, but very close at the front there for fast laps. But yeah, Wedding is so much better in the corners here than Hans, but unless Hans makes a mistake, he's not getting past.
Or Wedding shapes up, tries to get the outside line from turn 2 into turn 3, but can't quite get the nose in front. It's very difficult there. The track really clamps down on the crest at turn 3. But he's lost a little bit of time now. That attempting to make that move has actually sent him a bit further back from the rear of the Lamborghini. So that's spread that battle out. We look back to that battle further back. Tim Redmond now leads that group with Zach Ross and Notaro and Steve Bolger almost sending it around there on the exit of turn 5. It's a bit of you don't know where to look. There's so much going on in the mid-pack.
I think his Bolger made a mistake somewhere there.
Yeah,
he was in front of this group.
Yeah, he was. He's had an issue somewhere along the line, guys, and he was up to 8th place. And he's now at the back of this train. Greg Turra has managed
Lewis
to get
Wedding
past
right
him.
on the back of Hans Brunswick. He's bump drafting him down the straight, but cannot do anything about it. He loses so much speed. It's incredible.
He's probably gone for a setup, I think, that's better through the corners, but because the Lamborghini ahead of him is effectively cutting off that avenue of making headway through the corners, he can't use his pace to its full extent. So he's going to have to commit somewhere under brakes. He's going to have to hope Hans makes a mistake, gets a good run, and then commits heavily under brakes and get the block pass on.
Hopefully we can go on board with Lewis Wedding as they go down the back straight this lap to see what that difference is, because he's been so close to him and just not able to make any moves.
Interestingly, Lewis Wedding had the fastest middle sector last lap around, and that's almost all straight line. It's just the run out of turn 5 across those two right-handers, and then the one down the back straight.
The thing is, though, is the whole time he spends in the slipstream, and it was around about when they cross the sector mark, he pulls out the slipstream, and it just all goes away. So hopefully we'll be able to see how it goes here. Because he's, I don't know, it's amazing how much extra downforce he must be running in comparison for it to be such a significant difference. Here we go.
Having a few issues with the onboard cameras here, guys, just to say, so we'll go to the roof cam. So here we go, we've got it now. A couple of little camera dramas of the AMS being AMS. You can see he closes in, but the Lamborghini's punching a nice hole in the air, but just not being able to get into the right spot at precisely the right time to make it happen.
He honestly seems less confident on the brakes as well than Hans Brunswick, because Hans seems to be braking just that little bit later. You see the gap widen out right in the braking zone where Lewis gets on the brakes that little bit earlier.
It's actually surprisingly difficult to make a pass into the chicane.
A
there.
bit of shenanigans back here, guys. 3 wide going into turn 1. Zach Ross is on the inside, Tara in the middle, and Redmond on the outside. And Zach Ross has exited stage left. What's gone on there? And so both the Taras have swept through. Zach Ross has gone off the track. I think he got stuck on the marbles there, I think. It just had nowhere to go. And he shortcuts the circuit there as well. So clearly got a bit of junk or something on the tyres. But let's have a look here.
I think Ross might have taken a hit from Tara there.
I don't think it was intentional. If you look at the replay here, Ross goes very, very deep under brakes. He tries as hard as he can to get that move done, but he just runs out of brakes and runs out of steering and just goes straight on. And there was nothing really. Oh, we've got to spin. We've got to spin further up. It's Brendan Ross this time who spun at the exit of turn 7. So he's looped it coming onto the back straight, and he drops down to 12th position.
Yes, he now falls in behind this battle, so he would have had to wait for them all to go through. And he was all on his own, guys.
Bolger versus Redmond drag racing down the main straight with Noah Taro enjoying the double slipstream that's been punched in the air. As Wedding sets, Devenish sets the fastest lap.
So that's
Bolger's off. Oh, they've touched.
A little bit of contact there, and Bolger redresses, and Zach Ross capitalizes and takes both of them back.
Zach Ross says, thank you very much for slowing down Steve Bolger, let Noah Taro through. I'm just going to take the both of you.
Yeah,
and... what a madhouse.
The ruling at the beginning of the night was positions were, bump and runs were to be given back as soon as it was safe to do so. Well, it was safe to do so, but it cost him another spot there as well.
Hans, well, I'm talking about Hans Brunswick and Lewis not being able to get past him, but Hans is onto the back of Lime Mitch and Steve Burko now. They've closed in. There was a significant gap between them, but it's closed right up now.
And I'm just going to take this quick moment of respite from the door-to-door action to just quickly mention the battle out front. It was a few laps ago when Peter Savage set his fastest lap of 17.4, which was 8 tenths quicker than Devenish on that lap. And since then, Devenish has responded with that new fastest lap. So the gap is just over 1.5 seconds, but Devenish isn't letting it get away.
Hans having a look here on Steve Burko, guys, into the chicane, and he's got the move done. So not only has he been able to hold Lewis Wedding off comprehensively for the opening 7 laps, but he has made a spot on Zach Ross, who's having a moment now. Is under pressure from Lewis Wedding, but he knows the drill. He knows he's got to fall back into line. There's no passing there, but Burko just with a very tardy 1 minute 19.7 that time around. He was the slowest of all the top 6.
And that pass has ramifications in the team's championship as well. Remember, Lou Simsport and Wedding Crashers Racing are the two protagonists in the team's battle as well. So that's good, handy points for the Lamborghini team on the team's championship.
And once again, have a look at how much Hans is being hounded through these twistier sections. And his gamble, I guess, of going with less rear downforce, less downforce overall, is paying off in spades because no one can get through in these sections where they're better. They've got great hot lapping cars, but not... never mind. Steve Burko's going to go for it. Oh, wow. Hans gives him the space, but now it's going to be a drag race all out. And have a look at that Lamborghini's acceleration there. He's got no slipstream or anything there, but he's just pulling away.
And part of that is, as well, when Burko gets cut down to that inside line, makes it much more difficult to get the power down. But this has just invited Lewis Wedding onto the back of these two guys again, lads. It's going to be very tight into the final sector.
That was so close.
Nose to tail from the two, from Hans and from Burko, almost touching through the chicane as they come almost three abreast through the final corner.
I thought Burko was a little late on the brakes there and might have pushed Hans Brunswick off in the chicane, but it was the perfect point for him to lose the least amount of time.
And by the way, as well, previous lap around, Peter Savage, fastest lap, responds to Will Devenish, maintains that gap at the front, now stretches it to almost 2 seconds.
Yeah, Peter Savage doing everything he has to do to try and win this championship. And Lime Mitch has managed to pull away from this battle of 3 as well. He was under pressure from Burko before, but now that they've been battling, he's able to just put his head down and pull away.
Leader's got a little bit of lap traffic coming up as well in the form of Rhodey in 16th, so they're not. They're probably about 2 laps away from putting him a lap down. There's a bit of a slide job on from Steve Burko coming through the bottom end of the circuit, and Lewis Wedding very nearly thought, hang on, I've got a chance to make a place here, but not quite. Now the 3-car slipstream train heads down toward the chicane. Is Brunswick's Lamborghini a sitting duck? Well, Steve Burko seems to think so. Lewis Wedding doesn't know who to go with, though.
He's got the slipstream now from that very slippy Lamborghini. As Burko's going for it anyway into the chicane. Oh, as close as you want. but Hans Brunswick holds the position.
Well
And
defended.
look for Wedding here. He lifted off early there, and he got a great run out of the chicane. He might have a run on these guys into turn 1, but they stretch out an advantage over the start-finish line, and it's looking like Burko's really got the hammer down here, putting some ultimate pressure on Hans. They go back up the hill.
You know
It's funny because this is what we were seeing with Lewis Wedding on Hans before as well, but it seems like Hans is just driving his race and forcing the people behind him to either run out or overheat their tires more than he is. And then he's just able to get away from them eventually. He's slowly where they're probably getting very frustrated behind him. But he's doing such a good job.
Yeah, and you can almost get too close in a battle like this. I think Burko's suffering that right now. He's too close to the rear of that Lamborghini. He's got no opportunity to get a run on the car ahead because he's stuck underneath that rear bumper. So anytime Hans checks up, he's got to check up as well. Anytime Hans makes a move, he's got to follow him. Whereas Lewis Wedding, he's being very smart here. He's just holding 3 or 4 car lengths back. So that way, if they get checked up, he's got a chance to swoop in on the pair of them.
Looks like we've got a first retirement too, guys. First retirement, Ujit Mishra is out of commission.
Here goes Burko.
I think for Lewis, the best strategy for him is to follow Hans and use him because he's the slightly faster car in a straight line. As Devenish sets the fast lap, and Hans holds off Burko yet again. And Lewis is still looking. He looks dangerous through this corner. If he can get the run, then he's going to be doing very well for himself. As Burko's going to go into turn 1, is it going to happen? I don't think so. No, he thinks better of it. That's a very hard overtake to make unless you're fully alongside. Yeah, what Lewis wants to do is just follow Hans every time because he's never going to pass Hans by getting Burko's slipstream, but he could pass Burko by getting Hans' slipstream.
Oh, bit of a twitch there from Burko. Just a quick look at the lap times, lads. Last lap around, this group here, 18.8, 18.8, 18.8. Up the front, 17.4, 17.3, and then an 18.5 for Lime Mitch. So these guys are certainly slowing each other down and really making it much more difficult for them to catch the guys ahead.
Not only that, Greg Tara behind this 3-car battle, guys, has started to put some good times in as well. Yeah, Lime Mitch has had an issue just there. He's come back to this group.
He had a half spin.
But Greg Tara has been running in clean air and has been putting in some pretty respectable lap times. Every lap for the last 3 consecutive laps has been quicker than this group of 3. So you're right, they are holding each other up. Burko and Wedding clearly look like they've got quicker cars, but the defensive performance from Brunswick at the moment is second to none.
I think Hans has realised that he's realised that Burko's not going to get him on straight line speed, and that if he does fire it into the chicane, Burko's just going to run into him and have to address the position. As Burko's looking again at turn 1, he gets such a good run there compared to Brunswick. That rear of that Lamborghini is so twitchy into the final corner, but the power just gets down in such a way that they can't get past him. It's incredible how much downforce these guys must be running in comparison. But it's so working for Hans Brunswick. It's a brilliant way that he's running this race.
And this is where you start to need to use your brain a bit more than just your outright pace here. I think Burko is much quicker with the run onto the straight, but as I made mention before, he's too close to Hans. He can't get that run on the Lamborghini down the main straight to really have a dive into turn 1. So if he starts to think a little bit more and use his brain, he might try and hold off coming out of the chicane and then really hammer it over the crest into that final corner. So that way he's got the maximum availability to get that run down the main straight.
We've got an interesting thing here because we've got traffic of roadie there.
He's missing a bonnet too.
That's going to affect what's happened here. Yeah, he's had a crash a little while ago now, but he's getting out the way. Right out the way. Burko's trying to take advantage of the double slipstream, but nothing going there. So in the end, no one able to use that traffic as a pick to get past, but they still caught up to Lime Mitch here, who, after that half spin, is just taking a while to get back into his groove. So this could become a 4-car battle very quickly.
That time around, they were a little bit quicker. They got the slipstream from Rhodey, obviously helped Brunswick with an 18.3, which, according to us, that's actually his second best lap as well. So getting back to the sort of pace that he needs to be if he wants to stay ahead of keep this group ahead of Greg Tara, who again is putting in some pretty respectable laps and just tails these guys.
Well wide for Burko there in the middle part of the S's. He just got way too fast to the left and had to bound over the curb just before the turn 5 corner. Just a quick note on the battle at the front. Last lap around, 6/10 the difference between Peter Savage and Will Devenish. So that gap
Lime Mitch is wide.
Yep, he's off the road. There he goes. He's off the road. He's going to drop spots to all these guys. Going to watch. To watch the rejoin. That was very, very close.
And that's balked Hans Brunswick a little bit. Burko's down the inside now. This is important. He's got the inside run down this back straight. So this is going to be a much more difficult prospect. Hans sweeps back across in front.
Look at that straight line
hold him
speed.
off.
It's incredible.
It's going to hold him off. Let's have a look at what happened to
Oh,
Lime Mitch. So he's done the same thing that Brendan Ross did. Just got his outside left rear on the grass at the bottom end of the circuit, and that scooted him off the road.
Something that's I've noticed is here goes Burko. He looks again into that for that first corner
Commit,
move.
got to commit, got to commit.
He's committed to it this
got
time.
Oi!
No,
There's a little bit of a touch there.
What's happened there?
Server lag there. And now Lewis Wedding's rounded both of them up as they come into turn 3. No, Burko does well to close the door again. And so Burko's gone to the top. Hans has lost 2 positions in 2 corners there. I'm not sure if there was contact.
It's hard to say what happened there because of the lag that we all seem to see there. So, yeah, it's hard to give an accurate assessment of what's happened there. But it's unfortunate for Hans Brunswick because he's been going so well there.
So there we go. Burko now into 3rd. 4th place is Lewis Wedding, and 5th is Hans, and then Lime Mitch now attacked onto the back of this group as well. Burko goes straight to the inside to try and break the slipstream. This is Formula 3 stuff down the back straight.
How's it going to go? Hans Brunswick now has a double slipstream in a car that's already faster, so I don't know how long he's going to stay behind these two.
Just a quick update on the front. Will Devenish responded that last lap around a 17.2 versus 17.8, completely reversing the 6/10 that Savage gained the last lap around.
But it was the wrong way around too. It was a 17.4 to Savage, and Devenish is 17.9 on the last lap as well. They've only just crossed the line and set those times. So it's one responds and then the other ups the game the next time, ups the ante the next time around. Now these guys were all in the 19s and 20s that last time around. Greg Turra 18.3. He is coming like a train onto the back of this group. He's got the gap down to 4 seconds now. It's visual. You'll be able to see him starting to emerge in the back of some of the long shots as they get down the S's here. And there he is, just fractionally out of shot.
Something that I've been keeping an eye on is the tyre wear that's happening for this battle of 4 here. Burko and Lime Mitch are running through their front tyres a lot faster than Hans and Lewis.
Wedding sending it at the bottom end of the circuit. He's got that move done. That's put Burko out wide. Brunswick went through Lime Mitch with a little bit of contact, and Lime Mitch is not happy about it. Wonder if he feels that Burko maybe closed the door on him there a little. And there's Turra.
Burko just got the nose just a little too wide at the turning point, and that was all it needed to understeer straight off into the weeds. Yeah. Very lucky they didn't lose more time there, but I could think Lime Mitch is rightfully aggrieved with the Bentley cutting straight across the front of the BMW.
Yeah, he was 2 wheels on the grass and, came sort of straight back on. Needed to stay a little bit to the left, I think, in that particular instance there. A little bit of an unsafe rejoin. That may be looked at post-race. It's an interesting thing as well, guys. Normally, with the penalty system, it's normally a grid penalty or a pit lane start or something like that penalty for your next race if you pick one up. Tonight, these guys have got to be careful because they're either going to get penalties in the form of time-based, positional base, or points deductions because there is no race in a fortnight's time.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different prospect. You can't just drive your way out of the problem that you have if you do make contact with someone. So everyone's going to be a little more well, they might try to be a little more conservative, but I doubt it knowing this group. As Lewis Wedding's the one this time with the understeer coming out of turn 7. So let's keep an eye on Hans here because he might have the run that he needs to get back ahead of this Acura. He's right in the wheel tracks, and look at that speed difference. There he goes.
Got him. And he's going to be on the correct side for the chicane. If he can hold it, he needs to just pull ahead slightly, and he's ahead by a car length.
And Lime Mitch makes the move on Burko as well. They're side by side.
Yeah, tries to make it stick.
Can't quite get there.
He's going
for the over-under, though.
He's just got to tuck back in here, slot back in, get the run, and see if he can set it up for turn 1. Oh, but he gets a little bit too much curve. Yeah, and that'll be enough for him to miss out there. How's the top speed of the Lamborghini though?
Oh wow, it's really quick. And on top of that, Greg Turra is still closing, guys. Look, the gap is down to about 2.5 seconds, so he's going to be on these guys before this race is out.
And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes with passing these guys because I don't know. I think these guys, the lack of pace for them compared to Turra is because they're battling. So it's like, oh, big moment for Burko there in the background, and that's given Lime Mitch a chance. And he's already passed as they go down to the bottom of the circuit.
And at the moment, the difference between Hans and Burko is a big enough difference for that championship picture for the teams to really come into focus. It's quite a number of cars in between the pair of them. So if it ends as it does now, that might cause a swing in the top of the championship for the teams.
Yeah, we're just plugging
Something I have to say about Hans Brunswick is he's also a lot better on the brakes into this chicane compared to Wedding, which is why no one's really had a chance at getting past him here, because he's going faster and braking later somehow.
That doesn't work. That shouldn't work. Physics says no. And just as an
Hans
aside...
Brunswick thumbs his nose to the face of physics.
Just as an aside, guys, the gap between this battle pack and the two leaders is 20 seconds in 18 laps. These guys have been holding each other up so much that our two championship protagonists have disappeared.
Oh, Lime Mitch exit stage left. Lime Mitch exit stage left. I don't know if he just blocked a break or something there, but he's gone to the back of the pack. Greg Turra might very well round him up by the... No, Turra's a bit too far back, but looking from the helicopter shot...
Very little time.
Yeah, looking at the helicopter shot, all of a sudden Lime Mitch just went purely and simply off the circuit. Didn't see what happened. Let's see if we can get a bit more of bit more information from the onboard. So
it looked like he just clipped that curb on the left as you hit the brake pedal, and that was enough to tug the car to the left.
Spot on.
And the old escape road.
Well called. And that's precisely what happened. Took a little bit too much curb compared to the guys that were ahead of him, and it's cost him dearly.
Wedding's look at the slipstream Wedding has now, but he's not going to be able to do anything with it though. He pulls out and he loses. Has
a car length.
It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
It's almost as if he's pulling out at the wrong time. He almost needs to stay behind Hans until the breaking point.
Yeah, it's got to be a late dive.
Make that move. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he can do it though, because he's not got the ability on the brakes tonight that Hans has. Hans is absolutely on point. Well, he's so happy with his braking point into that chicane compared to anyone else I've seen tonight. He's the latest braker from the highest speed, and he's just so confident that that car's going to turn in compared to everyone else.
Yeah, but I think what Wedding's mistake is that he's trying to pull out before the kink to the right, because that track kind of goes right. And if he pulls out a little too early, as he makes a little bit of a mistake on the exit of turn 5, he's kind of taking too much track. So if he pulls out before that kink and then the kink happens, he's kind of so far out of the slipstream that it doesn't make any sense anymore. As he gets the rear's locked and he's around Lewis Wedding.
Big lock up in the rear, and that gives Greg Turra a free position. So he's already on the back of Lime Mitch now. So that's huge in this battle for third place, with Wedding now behind Lime Mitch to the tune of 2 positions. And there was a yellow flag on the main straight, and I was trying to work out what it was. It's Steve Bolger. Bolger just having a bit of a moment, and he's out of this race. So he was pulled over side of the road on the main straight in the fence. So
quick scroll back to see what's happened to him. I would expect that he's made some sort of mistake in the final corner, and that's paid dues to his race. And yeah, exactly right. He's just on the tail of Zach Ross, it looks like. Got a little light at the front, and it twitched and sent him straight into the wall. And just in the background, there was also Tim Redmond spinning for some reason. So something to follow up on, maybe post-race.
Wedding's gone into the pits.
Yeah, I think maybe he's out of tyres. Or something.
I don't think his tyres look that bad.
Maybe he's out of patience.
But this is going to be a long time. He's not changing his tyres.
No, I think it's damage repair maybe, or something.
It's damage.
That's heartbreak for Lewis Wedding. Greg Turra, though, on the back of this battle, is eyeing up Lime Mitch very handily here. But the top couple in this group have just started to edge away, Brunswick and Burko.
There was a second between them at the start of the lap, and it's dropped significantly to 0 seconds now.
And now
Burko's going to have a go.
Swings out, yeah, and that's what I was saying about using the kink to swing out. So what Burko did there is he gets the rears lit up on the exit, is that he used the track curving to the right. He just kind of held the steering wheel straight, and that's what pulled him out of the slipstream to make the dive. I think Lewis Wedding was actually trying to pull to the right, left before the track moved, and then that's why he was losing out in that position there.
The thing is, though, it doesn't matter where they pull out. They're just not able to match that straight line speed and braking ability tonight.
Yeah, Hans has got something special under his left foot to get that car really anchored down and pulled up at the end of that straight. It really has been almost infallible so far tonight.
I've got a feeling that you could, if you chuck Peter Savage and Will Devenish behind him, and they'd struggle to pass him tonight if they were able to at all, because he's just got that, for that part of track, he's able to keep the car, it's perfectly set up for that part of track, which is the main spot where people overtake.
There's two groups of two now. Burko and Brunswick battling for third and fourth. Mitch and Greg Tara battling for fifth and sixth. And then out front, Will's just started to take a little bit of time away from Pete Savage, but I think it's going to be a case of too little, too late. He needs to be taking a bit more time out than this.
Oh, there goes
Burko extends this time.
And he pulls it up.
He's pulled it up.
Done. Well done. And he set that move up from a great exit out of turn 7. I watched her on board as well, and he got that turn 7 exit nailed. And that's what enabled him to set that move up and get the dive done under brakes. Well done from Burko and the Bentley.
Now that's significant in terms of the team's championship. Very, very significant, because the Loose Sim Sport Bentleys were well and truly ahead coming into tonight's proceedings, and that gives them a little bit more of an insurance policy at the end of tonight, now that they have two cars in the top three on the podium, so to speak, and all three of their cars are ahead of Luke Joyner, who is the last of the Wedding Crashers Motorsport Lamborghinis.
And Lime Mitch must have made a mistake, because he's now behind Greg Tara. What's happened there? Just coming out of turn 5, Lime Mitch just clipped one of those sleeping policemen, the sausage curbs on the outside of turn 5, and it's checked him up. And so now Greg Tara has overcome that 5-second gap and is now back into 5th place.
Up 9 spots from where he started, would you believe? Mover of race 1 so far, having started down in 14th place, and is now
after that mistake from Ollie.
Yeah, and is now 5th. Great recovery.
It's going to be very close, but I think we're going to have 2 more laps after this one, just based on where they are on the track. And when they cross the line, I think, unless Pete Savage decides to drop back about a second or so, there's going to be 2 more laps after this one.
And Lewis Wedding has come out a lap down, and he's in between Pete Savage and Pete Savage and Will Devenish right now.
We've got a yellow flag in sector
And roadies
1.
off the track.
Okay. Yeah, you might have heard my protestation in the background. That was Hans Brunswick getting a full tank slapper going out of the final corner. Somehow managed to gather it up before it hit the inside wall, but that cost him a good 3/4 to a second on his battle with Steve Burko, and that's enough of an air gap at the moment for Burko to feel maybe a little more comfortable with potentially 2 laps left.
16 seconds on the clock as Peter Savage exits the chicane. So let's see if he lets off a little bit here or not.
He hasn't had much
If he's
air
worried
time.
about fuel, then potentially, nope, there's 2 more laps are going to be left. So 5 seconds till they cross the line. So this could be interesting. If people were predicting 25 laps instead of 26 laps, this could have fuel implications for some people.
Yeah, we were spot on with our estimate on the track map earlier on tonight, that we were saying it was going to be about 25 laps, and we're going to get precisely that.
And might be tyres as well a problem for these guys, especially in this battle pack here. We've just been watching Burko, I've had my eyes on, really lighting it up out of the chicane and out of turn 7. So those rear tyres might be starting to protest their existence with only a few laps left. And if we go another lap, they're going to be screaming out in terror.
Well, let's go back to that man you were just referring to, Steve Burko, having a little bit of a moment there. Just Brunswick, I think, is on the slide a little bit as well. So they're all starting to just lose a little bit of adhesion to the road surface here. And Greg Tara is looking like he's ready to pounce. He's starting to really get in the wheel tracks of Brunswick's Lamborghini. Can he do what everybody else has had trouble doing all night, and that's get past the Lamborghini? If he gets a good run out of here, he's going to have a pretty good shot coming down the back straight.
And he's got the slipstream as well from Luke Joyner, who's just been lapped by Steve Burko, to maybe step into. Hans is scavenging for that slipstream down the back straight, doing anything he can to hold on to that position.
And it's what's keeping him ahead of Tara right now, because he was getting the tow and Tara was getting another tow. So that was pretty handy timing for Hans Brunswick.
But look at how much Hans gains on Burko in the braking zone.
Right. White flag is out, guys. So leader has taken the beginning of the final lap. So for these guys battling for the final step on the podium, it's all or nothing. These guys have got nothing to lose, but there is a team's game to play here for Brunswick and for Burko. But for Greg Turra, it's all he can send it if he wants.
I don't think it's going to be close enough, but Hans is managing to really hold onto the back of Burko through this twisty section, which is crucial, although, as I say it, he drops back a few car lengths there. But it's going to be all about the braking zone down into the back of the circuit here for Hans, and he can get close enough to Burko to get into the slipstream down to the chicane.
It's hugely different driving styles for these guys as well. You could see that Brunswick was slightly more aggressive on some of those big sausage curbs, whereas Burko was doing his best to try and avoid them.
Leader on the last corner.
At the front, Peter Savage comes round the final corner to do what he needs to do. He takes race 1, first place, followed by Will Devenish. But back for third place, Hans Brunswick is right in the wheel tracks as they come down the chicane. He's on the inside. What can Burko do? It's going to be the battle of the late braking here, which has been Hans Brunswick all night. Final lap. Hans is through. Can Burko get back to him as they come into the final corner?
Well, he's allowed to run side by side. If he wants to try it, he's going to run side by side. And Burko's on the slide, and he somehow managed to get a fistful opposite lock and corrected. Sliding through the final corner. It's Burko. He gets home for 4th. Brunswick 3rd. Turra 5th. Great try from Greg Turra. Lime Mitch finishes 6th on that run there. Wow, that was pretty wild and willing toward the back end of that one.
And
well, if there's any time to lose...
Somehow Burko didn't hit the wall there.
If there's any time to lose the car and crash, it's as you're going across the line on the last lap, because it doesn't matter after that point, as long as you've made it across the line. But, geez, that was full commit in those final 2 corners from Burko. The back of the car was trying to become the front of the car. Very, very... for the whole last 100 metres of track.
Both the Turras getting home inside the 10, and then Turmo rounding out the 10. So there's a few stories up and down the field out of that one, guys.
Oh, you can say that again. That battle for 3rd, the entire race, first Hans Brunswick, Steve Burko, Lime Mitch and Lewis Wedding, and then joined by Greg Turra. That is right up there with the best racing we've seen in this series, which we say every damn week, but it is just so phenomenal what these guys are able to produce week in and week out. And I think they can all be very happy with the performance they showed today, despite, I think, Burko losing that position in the final complex of corners.
Yeah, I believe what an opening race out of a 2-race night. And to think, guys, we've still got qualifying and another 30-minute sprint race to go.
Yeah, and we've got our first race top 2 in the booth with us. Hopefully we'll be joined by Hans later on as well. But we'll start with race 1 winner, Peter Savage. Peter Savage, race 1, job done. First one in the books. That must feel very, very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I did exactly what I thought I was going to do. A lot of pressure puts me under the pump, makes me focus a lot more, and I was able to hit my braking points pretty much perfectly throughout qualifying and the entire race. Made a few mistakes in that race, which I wasn't happy to myself about. But it was near on perfect for me. I reckon that was a very good race.
Does having the championship in your mind, does that make it more pressure and more of a burden, or is that something that really drives you for this second race, knowing that all you need to do to win the championship is to win race 2?
I just came out in that race with a, it's go hard or go home pretty much. I can't lose second. I can only gain a position from tonight. So I just came out guns blazing, did my job, but I wasn't thinking about the championship during that race in the slightest. I was just thinking, get your points in, get it to a stage where you can just go out in the next one, do exactly what you just did and win the race. And I've done that so far. I don't know how I'm going to handle the championship pressure in the next one, but yeah, I am honestly pretty tired from that first one. That was something.
So more of the same for the second race too is the plan?
Definitely.
Awesome. Congratulations on your race 1 victory tonight, Peter Savage.
Thank you.
Second up, Will Devenish, second in the first race tonight, second for the entire race. But you did, I think, snag the best lap at the end there. Will, is it difficult seeing the Bentley disappear off in the distance?
Yeah, a little bit, and really got to give it to Pete. He was a metronome tonight. There'd be maybe one lap in 5 I'd peg back a couple of tenths, but he'd always match that or beat it over the next 4 or 5 laps. So full credit for him for this race. It was quite impressive to actually watch him and how consistent he was all night.
And you've got the best seat in the house. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of you guys tonight because we were focused on battles up and down the pack. But it's been the story of the season has been you two battling up against each other. We've talked a little bit about your battles in the past. Now we're in the final race of the season. Is there a bit of fire, a little bit of anger tonight between the two of you, or is it still all fair and all chummy?
It's all chummy. We've been messaging each other all day, just sort of pepping each other up. So. I think we're both happy if either one wins. So, to be honest, like Pete, you couldn't have someone better to race with, either in your team or outside the team. And having him as a partner on the track, even though we're completely different teams and different championship, it's good to have him there.
See, there's a little bit of partnership and a little bit of brothership between you, but final race of the season, Pete needs to win, and if he wins, he's got the championship. What does that scenario do for you as the incumbent for the last race?
Well, it's the first sort of situation I've been in where I could have won the championship in the last round. So it's new for me. All I'm really thinking about now is to really do a cracking qualifying lap and hoping get in front of him, because I feel if I'm not in front of him at the start of the race, it's just going to be near on impossible to get past him.
Well, fingers crossed that you've got qualifying teed up. We're soon going to be into that session. Best of luck. Congratulations to second place in race 1.
Thank you.
And finally, the star of the show for race 1, in our opinion, Hans Brunswick with a 3rd place. Hans, how in God's name did you get that much speed down the back straight and be able to break that late, lap after lap after lap, to keep that battle pack of 5 behind you?
I guess it was a matter of strengths and weaknesses. Like I think some of the other cars are a bit weaker down the back straight. I know Lewis had a battle on his hands. He's been having a battle on his hands all season with the Acura, and perhaps Burko's setup was a bit more wing on the car. So if I knew that if I could keep with them at the just on their rear bar, then I knew that I could overtake them on the straight if I got a good exit. And lo and behold, I did it. And it wasn't a done deal by any means, because it was it could have ended very, very badly. And Burko made a pass on me into turn 1, and I think he had a lag because he just stopped in the middle of the road. He just froze in the middle of the road, and I went back of him. So I lost 2 spots. He got my spot, and then Lewis got my spot. So, but wow, what a cracking battle! I think I'll name those people that were in that battle. You had Lime Mitch, Steve Burko, Lewis Sweating, and at the end of it, you had Greg Tara in there as well. So that was absolutely fantastic. And honestly, like, I've never had my heart rate so high in a race before.
Yeah, we gave you guys a lot of camera time because you were the most exciting thing on track. Do you consider the implications of racing when you're making these setups? You think, I want to be able to pass people, so I want to have that more top line speed, or is it just a matter of whatever gets you personally around the track quicker that you implement in your car for the races?
Yeah, I think if you look back on Automobilista and the Boxer Cup, I think I made the wrong setup change there. I was just losing a lot on the straights because of the drag, but it was better in the corners. But I couldn't really convert on that. So, Will, he's always very kind. He always sends me a setup whenever I decide to race for his team. So his setups are very good. He puts in a lot of effort, and honestly, it's just it's almost arrive and drive. You just come into the server, just do a few laps, get familiar with it, and off you go. And his setups have been very good, and his help this season has been very good as well. And honestly, like to pick out of 2 deserving champions, Pete and Will, I couldn't pick who.
Good call there. Finally, just a note on the team's championship. You're playing support act for the Wedding Crashers racing team. Good double podium for you guys over the Loose Sim Sport. Are you looking to try and double up again in the second race for the team's championship? Is that something that you're really thinking about?
Oh, we'll do our best, but nothing's for certain, Floody.
Fair enough. Congratulations to third place and best of luck for the second race this evening.
Thanks, mate.
So a bit of a contrast in attitudes there across the group. I think Peter Savage very much in the zone, whereas Hans and Will are much more out there for enjoyment. I think Will sounded almost a little deflated, a little defeated already, heading into this second race.
Look, it sounded like he might have been a little bit flat there with just the sheer pace that Pete was able to show in that race, and that Devenish was not able to get close to even slightly. And we'll see what happens in the next race. Something that I've just been having a quick peruse of the points allocations, and we know that the scenario being if whoever comes first in this next race between the two of them, if it's first and second that they go, will be the championship winner. But if someone else manages to get on their pace or get the jump on them at the start and stay ahead of them, second and third would mean that they tie on points if it goes Peter in second and Will in third. So that would then we'd go to a countback, which I think goes to Will by virtue of one extra podium place.
Well, is the countback first podium, like overall results, or is it number of wins first? What's the first tiebreaker?
It'll be the number of wins first. So in that regard, it would go in favour of Pete Savage. He would have 5-4. If they were tied on wins, then we're going back to podium finishes and best results. So, so that's the way that stands at the minute. Now, before we get into qualifying 2, and let alone where the championship sits after tonight's first race, we do have to do a little bit of a thank you, and that thank you goes to the folks at Antara Resort Style Living. They've come on board this year not just to sponsor the GT3 Sprint Series, which was a little bit of a thing put together by Mike Coulston at very short notice, which was great on our behalf at AMS Oz. So thank you to Mike for being able to broker that deal. But we got a little statement that came through from Antara this week, and just to, if I can have a chance to read that out, it goes something along the lines of, Antara Resort is proud to have been part of such an exciting and unique series, and they'd like to thank everybody at Automobilista Australia, including the broadcasters, the admin team, and the drivers, for making it a very, very good series to watch. Based on what they've seen, Antara is proud to continue sponsoring AMS Oz events into 2021 with some exciting new series and one-off events on both the Automobilista platform and some other racing simulators to go along with it. And that's signed off by the General Manager of Antara Resort over there in the Middle East. So big thanks to the guys at Antara Resort Style Living for giving us not only the honour of being our first sponsor in Automobilista Australia, but also for putting up the prize fund for the winner of tonight's Sprint Series Championship.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to be able to have a sponsor for this race and to give everyone a little something to race for as well. And it's, thank you to Antara for helping us, continue doing this, because this is, we do this for the fun of it, but the fact that we're able to have a bit of something in there for everyone to compete for is very good.
And on top of that, they've also put a little bit of cash forward for some sponsorship dollars for the upcoming Bathurst 500 in just over a month as well. So along with a couple of other sponsors that we'll be naming very, very shortly. But again, thanks to those guys for seeing the value in what we put together, and the fact that we do a lot of this out of our own time and our own pockets. It's good to be able to, break even, is the way we'd like to call it. Just being able to cover the costs that we have to put up for each year. But no, thanks very much, guys. It's very much appreciated. And on top of that, the admin guys have wished to thank not only the broadcast here, Outworld Broadcasting, but also the three of us guys. They've really enjoyed what we've been able to put up this year, and I second that. It's been a pleasure to share the box with both of you.
Oh, that's very nice, Nether. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to come along for the ride, really. It's been an absolute privilege to do this. And yeah, I can't believe how much fun I get to have every Tuesday night.
Well, we're going to have some more fun.
Second.
Sorry, go on, Vaxi.
No, I second that. It's very excellent time spent on my Tuesday nights all throughout this year with GT3s.
Well, we might hold over the point standings just for a little bit because we're about to get into this 10-minute second qualifying session for the second and final race of the GT3 Sprint Series. Brendan Ross, yet again, getting to the end of pit lane, being one of the first cars out. Not the first man out this time because it was that on a winter turbo last time, but he's got Rhodey in the Xbox Dodge Viper for company this time around. Can Rossi do any better than what he did on his first qualifying stanza? Oh, he's not going to be doing too well if he's going to be shortcutting the circuit like that.
Apparently going out first here at Road Atlanta is currently cursed because Termo had the same problem when he came out first and immediately went off the track as well.
At least that time, Rossi didn't make impact with the wall, unlike Termo did on his occasion. So yeah, Rossi not quite to the same level of I don't know, franticness, unpreparedness.
Probably unpreparedness, I think, is probably the best way to put that one.
Spending too much time at the end of the lane, tyres got too cold, and suddenly it's understeering off at the first corner you come to.
Now, the one thing we didn't pick up on, guys, with the track map and information earlier tonight was that this is the first visit we've had here for GT3 machinery. So there are track records up for grabs. Now, let's refresh our memories. The pole lap in qualifying one for race one was Pete Savage's extremely impressive 1:16.872. The only man to go under the 1:17 barrier.
Yeah, it was to do that on a single lap as well. It was pretty incredible because we only saw times in the 17s in practice when they were able to just keep bumping out laps. So to be able to fire that out in one-shot qualifying is very, very impressive.
Oh, yeah. And the best lap in the race session was Will Devenish's 1:17.282. So that was only a tenth shy of what he managed in qualifying, Will Devenish. So that's pretty handy as well. So we'll keep an eye out for those two records or lap records to see if they can be bested in the final two sessions of the night.
Just back to qualifying now, and Brendan Ross, he's actually had quite a poor first sector. Car. Remember how we saw in the first qualifying session that it was very twitchy and very difficult. He was making a lot of wheel corrections. This time it's just not got the turn in. It's understeering at every single corner. And Brendan Ross, 31.1 to the first sector mark. He's just come to the second sector mark of 1:01. So another 30-second sector mark. This isn't going to be an impressive lap for Rossi, which is a little bit of a shame considering his pace in the practice session. So he's going to come across the line to set the first lap. But don't hold your breath for Ross fans. It's a 1:19.9.
He's unhappy.
Yeah, he knows he's not happy with it as well.
And that's the thing about one-shot qualifying is that it doesn't take much, but suddenly you're right down near the back of the grid. And both Peter Savage and Will Devenich will be thinking about this because they want that pole position. They want to be able to take the advantage off the start. But if they push too hard on their qualifying laps, then it's going to cause them a lot of issues. And they don't, because if they start back in the field, it's going to be so difficult to be able to compete.
Now I know
we've seen already. I noticed that Rhodey's just who was behind Brendan Ross on the track has also aborted his lap as well. So that's a rear of grid start for him, unfortunately. Yeah. And we saw how difficult it was to pass in that first race in comparison to Bahrain, which is a nice wide circuit with a few really clear passing opportunities. There almost isn't a passing opportunity at this circuit. Even the chicane, if you're passing Hans, it's impossible. But it's actually quite a lot quicker than you expect. You got that big apron of the curve on both the outside and the inside of both parts of the chicane, so you can really take quite a bit of speed through there. Rossi's lap is still holding up at the moment. We've had laps from Cracker, Joyner, and Mishra slotting in, and Noah Toro as well, which is a little bit of surprise to see Noah not eclipse a 19.9. So Rossi's lap time is good for now, but it's going to be eclipsed by the other Rossi, Zach Ross, 0.7 of a second up coming into the final sector.
Let's go and pick up Zach Ross then. Just watching Hans Brunswick start his lap. There's a little yellow flag at the first corner. That would have been for Steve Bolger waiting at the pit lane exit. He was a bit further around. Zach Ross goes under a 1:19, so 18.9. Just ahead of his namesake, Brendan Ross, by little under a second. Next man we're going to look. Oh, Hans Brunswick has had a moment. Sorry, guys. Hans Brunswick has had a moment, and that's before the Sector 1 marker. I was about to cut around to see if we could find what had happened, how Greg Turra was going, because he was tracking like being the next man across the line. What did Brunswick do? And getting down through the S's, and didn't look too odd. And off the... Oh, we got the sleepy policeman on the outside of the first part of on the exit of running down to Sector 1. So that's what's unfortunately ruined his lap. So he's going to continue on. Greg Turra, incidentally, has gone to the top, provisionally ahead of Steve Burko, not by very much. This lap,
and it was all in the last sector that Turra made that ground. 2/10 quicker in that final sector to come almost from nowhere to eclipse Burko by 15 thousandths of a second.
Yeah, he wasn't very far behind or ahead of the Burko time. Sorry, ahead of the Zach Ross time coming out of the Sector 1 marker, but he gained an awful amount of time in the final sector.
Well, Hans has pressed on with his lap and has managed to do a 1:39.1. So
what that does for Brunswick is it makes sure that he finishes ahead of any cars that decide to abort their lap. So if there's 2 or 3 cars that decide that they've ruined their laps and they don't want to continue, they want to start rear of grid, he will start ahead of those guys at the bare minimum.
Oh,
so Peter Savage starting his lap now, coming through.
Starting it slightly on the grass.
Yeah, we'll jump on board with Peter Savage if we can, Nether, and we'll watch his lap from the driver's seat, going through turns 2 and 3. Nice use of the curb there, and very stable. You can watch the wheel work, and there's no corrections there. It's all very smooth as he fires down the S's and then back out towards turn 5. Just grabs a little bit of curb on the left-hand side on the braking zone and uses all of the apron there very nicely. And he's up by 4/10 once again. Not quite as quick as his first qualifying session. Remember, that was a 29.6. So not at the absolute pace he would have liked, as he gets a little bit of oversteer between turn 6 and 7. And now this long run onto the back straight. It's very smooth so far from Savage to become slightly uphill over the back straight and then across the top of the crest and down into the chicane. We just had a lap come in from Bolger. He slotted into 4th, only about 14 hundredths or something beside Zach Ross, as Peter Savage is a second up on Turra's time. Nicely done through the chicane there, using all the apron on each apex over the crest and diving into the final corner. Uses a lot of that curb on the inside, and he sets a 17.7, so not quite as good as his last lap around, and that could allow
almost a second slower.
Yeah, and it could allow the likes of Lime Mitch, Will Devenish, Lewis Wedding a chance to eclipse him and take a bit of an ascendancy into the final race of the season.
Lime Mitch just exiting the pits now. Will Devenish coming through the final chicane, so just a corner and a little bit to go for Will. So
well, just a quick thought is that the track the track evolution has changed from the last race. That we don't have a whole practice session before it, so that could be the main contributing factor. Is the track usage is less.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing in the live chat. I think confirmed by Brendan Ross, who's in the live chat as well, that yes, the server track has condition has gone back to essentially green or very light. So we probably aren't going to see the lap times. Oh, Will's out of control! Very, very briefly coming down the S's. Oh, he grabbed it and he's aborted. He's aborted the lap.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh, he got
a track violation.
Wow.
That is massive. Wow.
Wow.
Big moment in this championship-defining race coming up in a couple of minutes' time. Will Devenish going to be starting ROG. That is big. That's huge. That is the biggest thing we've seen since Monza. I know we've had some swings either way as Limich starts his lap on the grass, but we have had swings and roundabouts. Phillip Island went in favour of Pete Savage, with Will Devenish unfortunately having a technical gremlin with the game. Then at Bahrain and race 2, it went the opposite way with Pete Savage having the same thing, so effectively swung the balance back the other way. But not since Monza, where big pressure circumstances have come out to play. That could be championship defining.
That could be championship over.
It
Will
could
Devenish
be.
right there before the race has even started, because he needs to be ahead of Pete Savage on the road to win this championship. Unless
that's
Peter
good.
Savage has an awful race or has a DNF for some reason, he is not. He has no chance.
And it's going to be difficult now for Peter to stay in that aggressive mindset, because the last thing you want now is to make a mistake while in this position and to throw it all away, to choke at this moment.
The thing is, though, now is that really for Peter Savage, he was saying when you interviewed him, Floody, that he wasn't even thinking about the championship in the first race, but he was wondering how it might affect him in the second race. But now that's a huge weight off him, because he knows he doesn't have to be aggressive. He knows he doesn't have to be perfect and metronomic like he was in race one, because his main championship rival is starting at the opposite end of the grid to him, and he has to get through 15 or so cars before he's even in range. He's probably thinking, I could afford to do some celebratory burnouts halfway through the race and still be ahead of him.
I will caution, as we see, as Lime Mitch jumps into second place, 32 thousandths of a second ahead of Greg Turra, to not count your chickens before they hatch. We've seen this in real racing. Scott McLaughlin, 2017 Newcastle, the championship was in the bag. All he had to do was finish the race effectively. He started with a ridiculous lead, and that race was the perfect storm of having your worst day when you needed to have just not a bad day. And the last thing that Savage would want right now is to be too relaxed going into this final race, because there's surely the weight coming off the shoulders, but it's not done yet, and you can't lose focus at this stage. Lewis Wedding coming around the final corner, set his time and jumps into second as well. So the grid for the final race will be Peter Savage needing to finish ahead of Will Devenish, starting from pole position for the final race of the season. Peter Perfect, Peter Poleman once again, Lewis Wedding second place, Liam Mitch third, Greg Turra fourth, Steve Burko fifth. Those three separated by less than half a tenth of a second rather. Zach Ross, Steve Bolger, Brendan Ross, Tim Redmond, and Termo rounds out your top 10. Noah Turra, Cracker, Luke Joyner, Urgent Mishra, and Hans Brunswick setting laps, and no laps recorded from Will Devenish or Rhodey. So Will be starting from the last row of the grid. What a development here tonight at Road Atlanta. Wow.
Big drama. Big drama. And on top of that, what makes the challenge even harder for Will Devenish is that he's going to have some rear tail gunners for Pete Savage in the form of Zach Ross and Steve Burko that he has to get through as well. So what Will's going to be hoping for is that a couple of these guys off the front of the grid, so Lewis Wedding, Lime Mitch and Greg Turra, hopefully if they can get up there and maybe sneak one ahead of Pete Savage somewhere early in the race, that they can hold him up a little bit and give him a bit more time to get through the field. Now, the interesting part of this equation, guys, is as we go and take a look at our point standings coming into tonight, we just need to do a little bit of changing here, as we've had a couple of changes on the points. If you can just bear with me a second here, we just need to select the right points settings that are on the board. So here it is. This is the team's points after the first race of tonight's proceedings. There has been some gaps close up enormously. At the very bottom, Hans Brunswick has now snuck his way onto the radar as well. He's up to P11 ahead of Tim Redmond with that third place finish. But have a look at how some of these gaps have closed up. So 4 points is all that separates Devenish and Savage. Lime Mitch has kicked away from Lewis Wedding after Lewis's shocker of a race one. But importantly for Lewis, Steve Bolger also had a non-finish, so that's allowed him to get at least a couple of points and just sort of keep a little bit of distance there. Burko's only 5 behind Steve Bolger and in good position to overhaul him for 5th and 6th in the championship. Brendan Ross was the big loser out of that one. He dropped well out of that battle behind Steve Burko. He was 6th on the standings there at the beginning of the broadcast. He is now 7th, and Greg Turra only 12 points in arrears and only 6 points ahead of his son. So not too many positional changes on that one, just 2 positional changes, but the gaps are the big ones.
Yeah, especially that gap for third now between Lion Mitch and Lewis Wedding. We've talked extensively about the battle for the overall championship. But Lion Mitch is the top silver class runner. He's got to be elevated to gold at the end of this because he's been performing amazingly in that BMW. And 9 points now separating him from Lewis Wedding. And then Bolger and Burko, that's a really energized fight. Only 5 points between those two. And Burko has shown incredible pace tonight as well. Not quite in fifth place for qualifying, so a good result. But importantly as well, Bolger is just behind him in seventh. So they're going to be another one to watch for the last step in the top five for the overall points tonight.
All right.
It's been a cracking season.
It has. And let's bring up the team's points as well, because we do have those available. So team's points after 5.5 rounds as well. So the gap out in front from Loose Sim Sport, the Bentley Continentals, back to the Wedding Crashers Lamborghinis is now stretched out to 34. So this is looking particularly good for Loose Sim Sport now that two of the main contenders for Wedding Crashers Racing are starting at the rear of the field and are going to have to work very, very hard to get back ahead. I think the team's championship may potentially be a bit of a bridge too far here. They're going to be relying on an awful lot of things to go wrong. But I think the second is probably where the best they're going to be able to settle for here for the Wedding Crashers Lamborghinis. Noah and Greg
I think unless there's a triple retirement, I don't think Loose Sim Sports are losing this championship lead.
No, Petty Rivalry Motorsport, the two Nissans of Greg and Noah Tara, are up still in third place, and they've managed to get a little bit more points on the board from the last race over the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune BMWs. That was a 6-point gap coming into tonight. They actually gained another 8 points tonight, so they've moved out to 18 points total. So it was 10 points coming in. They've moved out to 18 points ahead total. And then Gravel Rash Racing and Team Antara, that gap is closed up by a total of 5 points because Lewis still got out, Circulator got some points, and then Steve Bolger was a non-finish. So a couple of positions not over and done with just yet on the teams, nor in the drivers' standings. But, wow, guys, I don't know what else we can really say about this. We come into the night looking at the history that's on file, and we know where we expect some drivers to be, but unscripted events, we cannot predict these unscripted things from happening, and this has just taken a very big U-turn completely out of left field.
It's one of those things where if Peter Savage being on pole has been a common thread, Will Devenish being second has also been a common thread. I'm just having a look through when I'm flipping pages. It's almost the exact same. It's like I haven't even flipped the page because it's the same name in first, the same name in second. In qualifying, Will has been behind Pete on 4, 5, 6 occasions so far. 6 out of 12. So 50% of the time you can expect Will to be directly behind him. And if not directly behind him, he's only a position or two back. So, and this is the first time Will's failed to qualify or put in a lap. First time he's had to start rear of grid.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
We have seen Will do some amazing recovery drives in GT3 machinery. I'll recall back to Spielberg, where he spun it on the first lap, came through the field, and then got taken out again, just to come through the field once more. So we do know that Devenish has the ability in him to do some cracking recovery drives, and he will need the recovery drive of his career tonight to save what has happened in qualifying.
Well, we're about to go to live pictures here, guys. The grid is starting to get ready for this final 30-minute sprint race, not just of the championship, but the final GT3 race of the year for GT3 machinery. It's going to be sad to see these cars have a little bit of time in the sheds as we get toward the end of the year. Last year, we had 2 series that ran for a total of 8 and 9 rounds respectively. This year the first series was 9 rounds and 6 rounds this time out, but a very unique series. So it's caused a few drivers to sort of have to think differently about how they drive these cars.
Yeah, just a quick note. You just reminded me of something there, Nether. If you have enjoyed watching GT3 racing, you don't have to miss out on any with these cars being shelved. You can head over to the the GT World YouTube channel, and the Ajax GT 24 Hours of Nürburgring is on this weekend, and then there's going to be a bunch of rounds leading up to the Spa 24 in a few months' time. So yeah, you can watch these GT3 monsters in the real world take on some of the biggest tracks for 24 hours on end.
For the final time this year, Bagsy, let's roll through this grid.
Well, it's the final round of the final race of the final round of GT3s this year, and Peter Savage is once again on pole position and is in the box seat for the championship. He is out front, his main championship rival is at the back. He just has to finish this race, really, and he's in the championship elect position. But we'll see how he goes on this race. Alongside him is Lewis Wedding, who is still in the battle for third in the championship. And behind him in third is Liam Mitch, who would have been in fourth had Wedding been able to complete his lap. So the car is still correct. It's Will's fault that he's not in fourth. Greg Turra is in fourth, and the Turra battle is going to go in Greg's favour so far because he is a long way ahead of Noah Turra. Steve Burko and Zach Ross in fifth and sixth for Loose Sim Sport. Seventh for Steve Bolger alongside Brendan Ross. Tim Redmond is alongside Termo in ninth and 10th. Noah Turra in 11th alongside Cracker in 12th. Noah Turra with a lot to do to overhaul his father. Luke Joyner in 13th alongside Ujit Mishra in 14th. Hans Brunswick is at that 139 because of his mistake, which puts him in 15th alongside Will Devenish, the other championship protagonist, in 16th with it all to do. Brody rounds out the field, and as we come towards the line, Peter versus Will, who's going to win?
Big pressure circumstances. The field gets ready to round the final corner, and the green light will be shown. There it is. So as soon as they get to the line, it comes up pretty quick, and away we go. Lewis Wedding wasn't asleep at the wheel, but Pete Savage was equal to the task as Wedding sent it down the inside at turn one. The answer to that equation is yes, he does send it down the inside. It gives him fair racing room, lets them run out. Now comes the left-hander, so Pete Savage has the high ground there, but Wedding's not wasting any time, and there's contact already. There's contact between Wedding and between Pete Savage. Liam Mitch is around in back a shot as well. Through to the lead of this race goes Steve Burko.
And it's Bentley's 1, 2, 3, Loose Sim Sport. Burko from Peter Savage, from Zach Ross now. So they've really gained there. It's Greg Turra, Steve Bolger, and Brendan Ross. Wedding was way too hot into turn 3, locked both front wheels and had contact with Peter Savage, and that speared him back across the track, and that's what's taken out Liam Mitch. So he's down now to 15th. This is a bit of a free kick for Will Devenish. He's already up 4 spots.
And look at this, guys. I think there might be some team orders going on here, I think, as well. Burko's just pulled out and let Pete Savage go ahead here on the run to the chicane. I'm not sure if this is going to be a straight-up fight for position or if Burko's just going to let him have it, but Burko just backs out, lets him have it. So there's already a bit of team orders going on here. Will Devenish has made his way up to P11. He's behind Ujit Mishra. He's gained a spot on Ujit Mishra now, so he's just gone. He's just already up to 10th on lap 1, so he's gained 6 places on lap 1. But for him, Hans Brunswick is ahead, so at least Hans is going out. They're sort of creating a bit of a wedge, and Wedding has somehow recovered into 8th.
Hans had a start that Will Devenish would have wanted, because at one point Hans was 4 cars ahead of Will, so if Will had got the start Hans had, he'd probably be ahead of Lewis, Redmond and Ross at this point as well. So it's but still a very good start, and you're going to wonder if team orders will come in between Hans, Brunswick and Will. I don't think it was team orders at the front. I think Pete is just genuinely that much faster than Steve Burko, and he's done what he needs to do, though, is stay in first and get ahead.
How would the heart rate have been for Peter Savage when they made contact with Lewis Wedding there? That would have absolutely scared him to death. It's lucky that it's worked out, though, because he has now his 2 teammates immediately behind acting as team gunners, and he's got the luxury of clear track ahead of him.
Have a look at the high shot here from the helicopter. Brunswick buried, his nose buried under the rear wing of Tim Redmond's McLaren 650S.
He's pushing him along.
And Wedding as well. They're going to freight train him. They're going to go around the outside. We're going to see as Schumacher and Hakkinen move down from Spa. No, not this time.
Hans legitimately pushed Tim Redmond past there, so Tim Redmond has Hans to thank for that position right there. His bump drafted him past, and Lewis couldn't do anything about it.
And Hans didn't even end up making that position on Lewis Wedding either, as Peter Savage sets the fastest lap of the race so far at 18.8. So very, 18. Yeah, 18.8. So a very slow start for everyone so far. Of course, a clean track as well, so still a bit to rubber in as the race goes on. And Lewis Wedding around the outside into turn 2 makes the move this time to turn 3 without locking up the wheels and without making contact with Tim Redmond's McLaren.
Down the hill they come. That move didn't work out for Hans Brunswick, nor did it work out for Will Devenish. They really needed to clear Tim Redmond on the back straight just then, but yet again, the bump draft slipstream pushed Redmond ahead of Wedding on the run down to the chicane. Now Wedding's managing to kick away here, so they're going to try again. Can they make a move done? So let's go and have a look at the onboard for Will Devenish's car. So he's not quite that close to Brunswick, but I think maybe he's happy to just follow in Hans's wheel tracks here for a bit. We go up a bit further up. Here goes Redmond round the outside of Wedding.
Again, I think as well, because Lewis Wedding had a shocking exit. He had both rear wheels sideways coming out of turn 7. They're going to go side by side through the exit of the chicane here. Now, Redmond's got the high ground here. Lewis has to slot back in. So once again, Redmond making the move on Lewis Wedding this time around. Oh, but it's very congested there as they come across the line.
There's a nice little battle forming just ahead of these guys as well for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th as well. They're all locked together too, but we're going to stay with this one for the minute because this is where our championship contender championship contender in Will Devenish is buried at the moment and cannot get out of it.
Hans's move there on Lewis was incredible. I didn't think he had the car pace through the first sector, but he's gone past him around the outside there, and Will Devenish is under attack from Ujit Mishra at the moment, and he is now 9 seconds
Watch out for the hold here. Watch out for the high and wide hold here. Brunswick may hold Wedding wide, and he holds him pretty well. But, and there's a bit of contact too, and there it is. That's why I was saying watch for the hold, because if Hans managed to hold Wedding wide here, Devenish would sneak through, and there it is, right straight away. So he held him wide fairly and squarely, but there was a little bit of contact on the exit, and that's what the problem was.
And now Lewis's NSX is inserting itself into the diffuser of Devenish's Lamborghini as they come down towards the chicane here. And Devenish is just center on Hans. He's been the only one now brave enough to make that move.
I think there was help there because I don't think Hans has broken that early for that corner all night.
No, and that was well done between the two of them as well. That's given a little bit of clear air just for Devenish, just to try and hone in on the back of Tim Redmond here and hope that something out in front changes in the next little bit, because he's up to P8. If he can get Redmond, it'll be P7. But then the next battle up the field is this. Greg Turra was in the midst of this. He's dropped back to P6. He was up to 4th. It was Zach Ross heading Steve Bolger and Brendan Ross. So Steve Bolger looking for a final podium in the final race as well.
Yeah, the problem is the gap between this group and Will Devenish is already 6 seconds, and that's not counting the 6 seconds from that group up to the pole man, Peter Savage. So there's a long way. Oh, that's contact! Was that contact between Wedding and Hans there?
Yeah, there's contact, and someone's off the road, and it's Lewis Wedding. So he's gone off at the bottom end of the circuit. And let's go and take a look at this one, if there is a bit of contact here, and who was at fault. So down the hill they came. We were just having a look to see what's going on with the battle ahead. So Wedding had a run. He had a run out of Sector 1. Hans was trying to round up Tim Redmond. And, Wedding into the back of Hans Brunswick. That's what the problem was. So no fault of Hans at all. Wedding just missed the braking marker. Very un-Lewis Wedding-like. And off he goes into the boonies, as he would call it.
And that is very lucky for Hans that he did not end up in the boonies with him. Somehow he managed to hold on there and only lost that one position. What this has done, that's freed up Will Devenish to start charging down to the gap ahead. So, yeah, unlucky for Lewis. I'm very, very... he must be fuming in that NSX. He's had an absolute torrid time with the Acura, and I don't think he can be more ready to get rid of a car than he is to get rid of the Acura.
I think if you pay attention to the pit lane after this race, you'll see Lewis Wedding with a jerry can of fuel and a lighter, just sort of sprinkling it around the general vicinity of the NSX.
I was going to be a bit more polite than that. I was going to say a for sale sign, but you kind of stole my thunder on that one.
Just quickly,
You might have a fourth one as well.
Will Devenish this lap, purple to the first sector. We're going to get the second sector time any second now, as it looks like Bolger was trying to have a look on Zach Ross. Here he comes
Not quite
to the second sector.
Not quite purple middle, but it was a 30 flat through sector 2, and he did set quickest lap of the race the last time around. He was 17 quicker than Pete Savage, but Savage has an 18.2. And as Devenish crosses the line, he's gone with an 18.3. So
Pete not letting off, even though he's at the front. Even though Devenish is 6 positions back, Pete is just doing his normal thing.
All right. Oh, bit of a wiggle there for Steve Bolger. We're just cutting up to the battle for the last couple of spots on the rostrum. And Bolger had a big wiggle coming down the S's. As I said last time, more wiggling than a Red Food concert. Or more wiggling, or more wiggling than a Wiggles concert if you want to be a children's entertainer.
This is becoming a very big battle for second.
Sorry, I've just scrolled back a little bit and seen, Lewis Wedding as well. So Cracker's had a spin at turn 5, and Lewis Wedding has had a major off.
Oh, yeah, I think that's terminal damage there for Lewis Wedding.
Yep.
Yeah, he's nicked the curb on the inside of the S's, comes swinging across the track, and I think that's it for Lewis. I think he's done.
Here it is from Cracker's point of view. There's Wedding ahead. And as he comes down, Cracker had a moment.
Cracker
as
had
well.
his own spin as well.
He had his own spin, and then we haven't got the footage. There's Termo to avoid Cracker. We haven't got the one for Lewis Wedding on footage by the looks of it, I'm afraid, just with the way that has all been set up. And then, race controls now issued a penalty for Rhodey. That'll be for a track infringement. That'll be for too many corner cuts, I suspect.
Already?
I don't believe
so.
Yeah, he's out on circ. He's just left the pit lane, so I'm wondering whether he may have got done for pit lane speeding. And
Will Devenish has passed Greg Tara.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
that was quick. So he's made.
And I don't think that's a mistake from Tara as well, because he's still the same
And
distance
he's in the
behind
wall.
Brendan
Tara's on the
Ross.
wall at the end of turn 5.
Who was that? Sorry.
It's a Hans.
He's taking out Hans as well.
Oh, wow.
No, that's a calamity. That's a calamity for Greg Tara there. He just nicked the last major curb on the.
And Lime Mitch has had a moment too. He's exited stage right. He's touring the grass. It's all going off here at the moment. Oh my goodness gracious me. Let's go back and have a look at this Greg Tara moment. So out of sector 1. Oh, there you go. Yeah, he did the same thing that one of the other guys did there. Oh, they tried to split him. Oh, wow. What a calamity that was. And Lime Mitch was lucky not to get hit as well, but then he had his own moment. Check this out. He did some grass surfing on the outside. He did a nice drift through the corner there, and then he exited stage right. And very nearly came back on and wiped Greg Tara out.
As I believe Rhodey just got a penalty.
Yeah,
I think that one was another track cut.
Yeah, that one's definitely for track cuts. That's down in the through the S's, so he's not having a good run in this particular race.
Bolger's gone around as well. Bolger's gone around just ahead of Will Devenish in turn 3.
Yep, there he is.
It's mistake central at the moment. It's all happening here at Road Atlanta.
The race has gone off. The race has absolutely gone. Oh, Lime Mitch!
Oh.
How close do you want to call that one? Bolger was centimetres from coming back onto the racetrack, and Lime Mitch was in a full-on drift through the S's. Here's Bolger's incident. He was tucked in behind Brendan Ross, but ahead of Devenish. And he lost it all on his own. And Devenish picked the right way. Devenish picked precisely the right direction to go.
Just clipped those sausage curves that we've been talking about so much. Same as Greg Tara on the exit turn 5 is just enough. They really drag the car, and it's like a big anchor that just grabs it. And so, yeah, that's been enough to turn Bolger around, and Devenish was lucky to choose the right way. He's gotten through on Brendan Ross, so all he has now ahead of him is the trio of loose SimSport Bentleys. So he's got 4 seconds to get on the tail of Zach Ross, another 2 seconds to get on the tail of Burko, and then he has a direct firing line to Peter Savage. So it's taken him only 10 laps, and he's already got the loose SimSport Armada in his sights.
Crucially, though, he's now 10.5 seconds behind Peter Savage in the lead compared to the 8.5 seconds it was before as he was coming up to the back of Greg Tara. So it's just the time is getting away from him now.
Yeah. And I wonder if Peter Savage is holding any damage as well from that first lap contact, because he hasn't really stretched a huge advantage. Not that we saw him in the first race do, although that was with battling a bit further behind as Devenish goes drift style through turn 7. It's going to be an intriguing run up to the line as we've got still 17 minutes left of this season.
Brendan Ross is not hanging around either. He's latched onto the back of Will Devenish and hoping that Will's going to maybe try and drag him up toward a potential podium spot here. This is actually pretty handy.
There's some straight line speed in that GTR, hey? It's not quite confident enough to go on the brakes, and definitely doesn't want to have any tussles with a championship contender, even if he's a long way back.
I think he's quite content to just sit there and let the Lamborghini drag him up via the slipstream up to the back of Zach Ross, if they can get there, which Will can probably see Zach Ross just as he came around the final corner. Zach Ross was disappearing into turn 1.
Best laps last lap around for both Zach and Brendan Ross, so whatever Will carrying Ross is doing is actually certainly helping him quite a bit.
And I just noticed as well that it appears that Steve Burko got a track cut on the last lap as well, guys. I'm just going to have a look and see what the Loose Sim Sport trio have done. Pete Savage has got a clean slate. Yeah, Burko did get a track violation, and Zach Ross has got a clean slate too. So just keep that up our sleeve, just in case something starts to happen a little bit later on. If Burko happens to, rack up another 1 or 2, he might be in a little bit of trouble.
I've got to say, this is actually quite an impressive drive from Zach Ross. Started in 6th place with a good qualifying run. He's getting right onto the tail of his teammate in Steve Burko, and we were saying how much Burko's been improving his pace over the season and getting into these top tussles. This is a great run from Rossi as well. Other Rossi, Zach Rossi.
Well, they've only got, as Pete decides to go into the 117s and prove us wrong when we were saying that maybe he's carrying a bit of damage there. He says, no, I'm definitely not. I'm, in fact, going faster. But if Zach Ross and Steve Burko can hold off Will Devenish, then I believe this will be the first time we have one team lock out the podium.
Yeah, I can't recall another race where we've had this happen before. Most of the time we have 2-car teams, but very rarely do we have 3-car teams in AMS Oz. This is one of the first ones. The Lamborghinis were the others for Wedding Crashes Racing, but that'd be very interesting.
We did have that happen. Maybe, I'm not sure what the affiliation here is, but in TCAC with Synergy Sim Racing,
yes, correct.
In the ATCC round last time out. Where were we last time out with that series?
It was Hidden Valley last time, but then before that it was Lakeside.
Yeah, Hidden Valley. I think Hidden Valley had all 3 Synergy Sim Racing cars on the podium there. So that's we have had that happen before. It's certainly very rare though. I can only remember that because it was literally last week that we had that happen.
Both Brunswick and Rhodey have gone a lap down now to the race leader, Pete Savage. And last time out, Will Devenish was quicker than these guys ahead as Savage bangs in another 17.9, 9.68 this time compared to his fastest lap, 9.59. So Will called it pretty perfectly after race 1. He was like an absolute metronome. Zach Ross's last lap was a 19 flat, Devenish 18.9, Burko 18.2. So the gap has sort of swung back the other way now. Will can find himself off the podium potentially at this juncture.
Yeah, and I think the problem for Will is he's not been consistent enough, and that was a problem in the first race as well. He made mention of the fact that every lap or so he'd gain something and then he'd lose something the next lap, and that's just been the story of his night. A very slow middle sector for Devenish last time around is what's troubled him, and he's losing out too much time too often to really push into the Loose Sim Sport Bentleys.
Just having a look at how things shape up on a point standings perspective at the moment. So Pete Savage, by virtue of leading this race, would win the championship by 8 points if it stands the way that it is now. Steve Burko would have enough points to vault up into 4th place in the standings, if you don't mind. He would still be behind Lime Mitch, who is currently safe from Lewis Wedding, but the one that lose it. No, you can't lose it. The one that Lewis Wedding's got to be careful of is Steve Bolger, currently 10th place on the road, only 2 points behind on live standings. If Bolger can get his way up to 7th place, he will overhaul Lewis Wedding for 4th overall.
And Bolger has Ujit Mishra and Lime Mitch just ahead of him for 9th and 8th. Greg Tara is a little further away from Bolger. It is about 13 seconds that he has to overcome, but that is only one mistake that it would take for Tara to lose that time. So it's not out of the question just yet.
Well, here is Steve Bolger.
Brendan.
And Lewis and Bolger's holding his own pretty well, but mind you, Ujit Mishra ahead is holding his own pretty well as well. And Lime Mitch is recovering from that spin he had a couple of laps ago. Ironically, around where that last incident took place. Another race control penalty for Rhodey. He's having a torrid time at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he might have had, because sometimes just one off-track excursion, especially in the first sector, can give you 2 or 3 track cuts at once. So I think that might have happened to him a couple of times, and just bang, straight away, all your track cuts are gone. So you get a penalty every time after that.
I see why he's doing what he's doing. He's staying out there trying to circulate and pick up some points, hoping that if there's another DNF that he will be inside the top 15, because only the 15 score points, as we see fastest lap of the race for Will Devenish, 17.8. And Bolger has now moved past Ujit Mishra. Oh, that's a little bit close for comfort going into the chicane. So another position for Bolger. Next man up will be Lime Mitch, but then Greg Tara's a substantial distance up the road at the moment. That would mean that Bolger, if he can get up to the back of Lime Mitch and get past, there would actually be a tie between Wedding and Bolger on points, and then we actually have to go back to a count back, and Wedding would have it by virtue of 2 second place finish. Actually, he has a win. Actually, so that's the tiebreaker anyway. He has a win and 2 second places in a third, where Bolger's only got a third and a second as his 2 best results on the season. So Wedding would still win that one.
So Bolger does need 7th place to overhaul Wedding for that position in the championship.
Correct, he does. So he's got a lot of work to do in the last 10 and a little bit minutes.
Will Devenish is pulling, like Brendan Ross, all credit to him, is doing a very good job to hold on to the back of Will Devenish, who is closing in as he goes fastest lap again. Then Brendan
Fastest
Ross
lap to
goes
Brendan
faster.
Ross in the draft.
Brendan Ross, very, very well done, Brendan Ross, because that's not all draft as well. That is also just a good lap from him right
By
there.
a fraction as
And-
well. Have a look at the times, Bagsy.
Yeah.
It was a 17.783 that Devenish flashed across the line in, and then it was a 17.774 that Brendan Ross put in a split second later.
Well, Brendan Ross is clearly just looking at Will Devenish thinking, all right, if I just drive like that, I go fast, and it's working perfectly for him.
And it was
But
in the
he
final
is
sector.
right on-
It was all in the final
Yeah,
sector.
and they
too.
are right back on Zach Ross and Steve Burko now.
Yeah, I was about to make mention they are beginning to reel in Ross and Burko here. Both of the Bentleys last lap around an 18.6. So 7 tenths, or more than that, 9 tenths reeled back that last lap around. And they're going to encounter some traffic as well in the form of Rhodey, who sidesteps the Bentleys quite nicely, gets out of the way. But that gap has come down very, very quickly. And Rossi's just giving Rhodey the flashing lights to let him know that there's
actually,
another car.
Well
He
done.
lost a lot of time in that middle sector there from the looks of it, actually, Brendan Ross.
So now the question is, catching, we always say this in motorsport, catching is one thing, passing is another. Can Zach Ross and Steve Burko really put Will Devenish to the sword and make it as difficult as possible for that very slippery Lamborghini to make a pass on this pair before Will sets away in chasing the team leader in Peter Savage?
He's got to be careful here, but he cannot afford to waste any time. So it's a delicate balancing act. The first one he's got to do, if he can get a good run out of here, you can nail one of them down into the bottom end of the circuit, down to turn 7. But he's not close enough on this particular occasion. So now he's got to think about, right now, the chicane is his next opportunity. Zach Ross has gone defensive here, and that's compromised his line. So Will was on the correct side, had a much better run out, and he's thought that one through really, really well.
Already pulls out of the slipstream. He's gone to the inside before Ross can even react. There's an already huge overlap as they go side by side. But the Bentley's got great top end speed and has the inside line. The question now is who's braver on the brakes. Devenish goes just a little longer and
well
swoops across
done.
the front and takes that position. So one down, one more to go before Devenish can chase this championship.
That was an authority
Brendan Ross
pass.
is looking for to buy in as well.
Yeah.
As he's got a very good run. He's going for the inside and then the outside.
Sold him
Zach
a
Ross
dummy.
parks it on the inside there. He's going for around the outside, but that's not going to work.
No, a little bit of contact. But the thing for Zach Ross there was he picked his line and he had to stay there because Rossi had already made his attacking move. So Zach Ross was stranded, just had to do his best to defend, and he's done pretty well to hold off the advances of Brendan Ross through the S's so far. Back to Will Devenish. Next man up will be Steve Burko. So Devenish now in podium position.
I think we've just had a mistake or something for Ujrit Mishra. He's dropped down the order quite a bit. He's now behind Noah Torre down in 12th place.
Yeah, he was passed by Steve Bolger not that long ago as well. So he's just struggling, I think, in the back part of this race. It's been a long season of GT3s. We've gone from the longer distance format where it's all about being quick but being smooth to pretty much just going into full-on sprint race mode, which is not something that these cars are used to seeing. So probably just getting a little bit tired, I think, as the night wears on.
So the gap now between Burko and Devenish is less than a second. Devenish has done great work to really reel that in and sets another fastest lap, 17.7. So the times are beginning to drop again. 17.73, eclipsing Brendan Ross's 17.77 and Will's prior best lap of a 17.78. So it's really getting that metronomic pace that he was talking about for Savage under his own bonnet. The problem is, with only 5.5 minutes left, the gap to Peter Savage is 11 seconds. The maths doesn't check out.
No, it doesn't. Devenish needs a mistake from Savage or a catastrophic bad luck incident of some, like a mechanical failure or internet failure of some kind, to have Pete Savage lose this. Yeah, 5.5 minutes for Peter Savage. Just needs to keep the car on the black stuff and he will be through for the championship. But any mistake will be, he's got 12 seconds, so he's got a few tiny mistakes or one big one in him probably, as long as he stays out of the fence and he can still stay ahead. But he's been peerless today in his speed.
Not only that, guys, Pete Savage has got the luxury as well of being able to dictate what lap we finish on as well. He's got so much margin. He's going along at about the same pace that he was in race one. But if he elects to, he can just let out a tenth or two here or there, and we'll have one lap less of this race. So one lap less for Will Devenish to get a pass done on Steve Burko if Burko can hold him off long enough.
And Devenish just had a shocking final sector that time around, losing in the tune of somewhere between 4 and 5 tenths there over Steve Burko. The problem with what Bagsy was suggesting of having one or two mistakes up your sleeve is that if you make one of the two of those mistakes, your heart rate goes through the roof. And he might have made one there, a 31-second first sector. I'm just gonna have a quick look. He's just
he had traffic. He had traffic of Luke Joyner. Yeah. He had traffic through the S's.
So, the last thing you would want is to just have one mistake, because that can open the floodgates.
Oh, Burko's had a moment. Sorry, guys, Burko's had a moment out of the bottom end of the circuit at turn 7 and 8, and Devenish is all over him now, coming up the back straight. So, Devenish has pulled out early. Is he going to pull the same trick that he did to Zach Ross and go right around the outside of the chicane? It looks like that's what's going to happen here. And Ross is eyeing off Zach Ross as well, a bit further behind. And Devenish is through and through already. So, a little bit committed. A little bit too committed in the braking zone, just managed to pull it up, but pulled it up at the critical moment where Burko couldn't get back at him.
So 11.2 seconds is the gap. 11.9 seconds is the gap. And with only 3.5 minutes left to go, it's looking like a very difficult prospect as Ross and Ross go side by side through turn 1 and 2. Well done from the pair of them there. Gave each other great racing room and very nicely done to not put each other into the fence.
No, they've done really well there. The margin between the top two title protagonists it's 11.9 seconds on track, but in terms of the championship, it is a solitary point in favour of Pete Savage. This is what Bagsy called earlier in the night. Will just couldn't afford to follow Savage home. He needed to beat him in at least one of these races, and he hasn't been able to do it in race 1. He's not going to be able to do it in race 2 at this rate. That margin just went up another half second.
You might have heard me protesting again in the background. That was because Brendan Ross, just in the back of the shot I was watching, went straight across the grass in the S's and rejoined the circuit behind Zach Ross. Now, Steve Burko is going to try and pull out and do the Will Devenish on Will Devenish as they dive into the chicane. Last of the late breakers there. And can Rossi get it? So can Burko pull it up? Will tries to go around the outside, gets two wheels on the grass, and Burko wraps around the front. Burko's back into second place, and that's brought Zach Ross back into this equation once again.
Yeah, that Lamborghini's now going to lose SimSport sandwich big time, and Devinish's going to try and do the Brendan Ross trick, go right around the outside of turn one, and he's going to pull it off. He's going to be on the line. What a stunning move. What a fantastic move around the outside at one of the highest speed corners on the circuit, and he just made that look absolutely pristine.
Brendan Ross gets a drive-through penalty for too many track cuts.
Yeah. Have a look at this. We're going to have a look at this again from the Will Devenish on board. Lined him up. Burko committed. He sold him a dummy, and then just was quick as a flash. He was into the gap, left in the space, and big pressure circumstances, big pressure move. Sold him beautifully. That's the only way you can really describe that.
It was brilliant. A great response as well to getting past just a lap ago. It's going to be... it's one of the highlights of the race for sure.
Now, Brendan Ross has got a penalty hanging over his head, but the problem is he's got 3 laps to serve it, and we're on lap 22. So if he doesn't serve it, he will take a 30-second penalty. But, he's backed it in. And look, and if I'm honest with you, now he probably needs to serve that penalty anyway, because he won't see out the distance. If he takes the 3 laps, he'll cross the line and he'll probably be disqualified. So he's better off just coming in, serving it, getting it done.
No, I think he's coming in anyway. But yeah, we've got 2 laps left, including the one that... Yep. Peter Savage is currently on.
Well, that promotes Redmond to 5th and Tara to 6th, with Brendan Ross having to come in 2 of the lane. There he is. Now, where's Steve Bolger in all of this and Lime Mitch? So there's Lime Mitch. He's going to pick up... Is he going to be able to get past Rossi in time? Possibly.
Yes, he is.
Rossi's just running to the wall in the pit lane.
Yeah, I wonder what he's doing there, whether he'd be scratching himself or something, but he's steered into the fence. And there goes Lime Mitch.
Lime Mitch is just getting in.
But importantly, Steve Bolger hasn't, and that's a bit more of a gap there. That's 7 seconds between Bolger and Lime Mitch.
Brendan Ross should be careful though, because he's got no track cuts anymore.
Yeah, he's got to be real careful. Look, he's not going to lay down here, Rossi. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at Lime Mitch to wrestle away P7, because in terms of the championship, anything that Brendan Ross can get, he will take at the moment. He was still in that battle with Burko and with Bolger, so he needs some points. He was 5th, and now being in, what is he now? He is in 8th place, and that's going to mean he's got 103 points. So he's actually in a battle now with Greg Turrer, essentially. He needs to get every point that he can, but he's got to be really careful.
You might have heard me again in the background just yelling a little bit there. That was because our race leader and championship protagonist, Peter Savage, came onto the main straight to start the final lap with Cracker just running into the grass immediately ahead of him. So it was very lucky that the Cracker didn't bin it in a big way, because that could have been a tragic end to Savage's championship run. But it will be a championship run that delivers Peter Savage's first AMS Oz GTL championship at all, as he comes down the back straight. He has been Peter perfect, Peter pole position, and today he will become Peter the AMS Oz GT3 Sprint Series champion through the chicane for the final time, over the crest into the final corner. Your race winner for both races tonight, and your championship winner, Peter Savage. Congratulations.
Well done, Pete Savage. To think that it was only 12 months ago that he debuted in supercars, and he has got a championship win under his belt finally, and with it the prize from Antara Resort Style Living, his choice of several prizes on offer. Well done, Pete Savage.
Will Devenish comes across second after a brilliant drive from the back of the grid. It's unfortunate that he had to come from the back, but all the way through to second, just not able to beat Peter Savage tonight. And Steve Burko with an excellent podium as well.
Yeah, that's another third place for Burko. His other podium was a third place coming at the second race in Suzuka, so at the halfway point of the season. So he ended the halfway distance with a podium, and he ends the season with a podium finish as well.
Yeah, Zach Ross, the Loose Sim Sport, a teammate in 4th. Tim Redmond keeping Greg Turrer at bay for 5th. In 6th, Brendan Ross coming home in 7th. He did manage to get around Lime Mitch. Bolger finishing in 9th. Termo rounds out your top 10 once again. Noah Turrer in 11th. Ujrit Mishra 12th, 1 lap down. Cracker 13th. Luke Joyner, Hans Brunswick, and Rody is your finishers, with Lewis Wedding not making the finish line. We get some very nice celebratory donuts on the back straight. I think might have a photo up here with the the Loose Sim Sport cars on the back straight together once again. What an awesome drive from the three of them.
Pete Savage does a Will Davidson and does his burnout and ends up hitting the fence. They've got to be careful here, these guys, because they don't want to be travelling the wrong way on circuit too much. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves with a disqualification. So they'll be very careful here, I think. Just plugging in our final finishing positions, just so we can get a championship readout by the end of the night. Now, we are aware that there is at least one item that has been put in from race 1 tonight, and we will have to investigate that after the proceedings are over. So that may still affect championship positions, but we'll have to just see what happens between now and then for the time being. But, guys, the only thing that I can sort of read into this a little bit is what happened to some of the guys in that particular race. Like Hans Brunswick, big issue. Lewis Wedding, big issue. And Will Devenish, well, his issues started from the minute he binned it in qualifying.
Yeah, Hans, he got unlucky with when Greg had his spin. He was just going so slowly on that blind crest, and when Redmond and Hans both went to go round him, I think Redmond caught Turrer a little bit, which pushed Turrer into Hans and sent him off, and then he had to wait a very long time to be able to safely rejoin. So just bad luck for Hans tonight.
And it was after an extremely promising race 1 as well for Hans. It just kind of all fell apart for the second race. And yeah, not quite where he would have liked to have been for the second race. And the same for Lime Mitch as well, getting caught up in that third corner incident between Peter Savage and Lewis Wedding. It wasn't quite the end of the series for quite a few of these front runners, but someone who did have a perfect night tonight, taking home both pole positions, both race victories, and a maiden AMS Oz championship by a solitary point. Peter Savage, congratulations. What a fantastic run from you tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I am really happy right now. So also good to see that Steve and Zach got, I think it was 3rd and 4th in the end. It was a great drive from the pair of them. I would like to apologize to Lewis and I think it was Mitch. I thought I left enough room. I don't know if I did or not. But yeah, I did see out of all of it, that I was the only one that got away with it. So yeah, that kind of ruined my mojo in the last race. But luckily for me, Devenish didn't do too well in qualifying, and I was able to still run away with it.
Track just a little bit there. Let's go talk about qualifying. What thoughts run through your head out of that session, knowing that you are on pole and your main championship rival is starting at the back of the grid? Did that change your mindset at all?
Yeah, that's actually one of the parts that ruined it. I was so ready for an intense battle for the last race, and I knew if I couldn't get away from Devenish at the start, that it was going to be neck and neck for the entire race. And I was mentally prepared for that battle, and then he went and cut the track, and I don't know how, but that just completely ruined any mojo I had going into that last race. Luckily for me, I think about 10 minutes in, I started getting going.
Yeah. Did it help having your teammates there? You were very lucky to escape from that lap 1 incident without a problem. Did having those rear gunners just behind you help you settle into that race a bit more?
Yeah. Them two being behind me, knowing that I had a little bit of a cushion to the next person that would be aggressive to me, I knew that I would be able to get into my zone and then start to push forward. Although even without them now, I probably would have done the exact same thing. Probably would have had to push a little bit harder.
And finally, how was the heart rate at turn 3 when that contact was made? What was what was that feeling right then?
I completely thought that I gave enough room, and I felt like, yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it, but as soon as I got hit, my heart rate pretty much stopped until I had the car under control. That was very, very scary because that is exactly what I said to Steve I didn't want to happen before the race started.
You managed to escape from that and you ran a perfect race afterwards. It's been a real breakout season for you, Savage, with a litany of pole positions, half the race wins as well. Just take us through a quick comment on the season as a whole. You must be feeling ecstatic about how that's gone.
That season went completely different to how I thought it was going to go. I thought I was going to be gunning after the people at the front, like I was in the endurance series, which I had felt was more suited to how I drive, not the sprint series. I don't understand why I was doing what I was doing, but definitely going to take it.
Fantastic. Congratulations on a perfect night tonight and a great winning season for you, Peter Savage.
Thank you.
Second place in the second race tonight was once again Will Devenish. Will, hard luck, mate. It must be a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, losing out on the championship by 1 point after such an impressive performance. But you've got to be proud with a run from the back of the grid like that.
Yeah, it was. I knew after qualifying there was pretty much no chance. So Hans and I sat down and we were just like, let's see what we can do together. And yeah, for the first half race, we were pretty much scything through the field, and unfortunately got a puncture. So it left me on my lonesome to tackle everyone else. Admittedly, there was quite a few generous drivers on the field that didn't really put up much of a fight, but yeah, those I think it was the loose guys in the Bentleys. They definitely made me sweat to get past them, but yeah, it was a lot of fun getting past them, and yeah, sort of just took that race as let's have some fun, get past as many people as possible, and we did as best we could.
Yeah, it must be disheartening coming from the qualifying session at the back of the grid. Just take us through what happened there on your hot lap. What was the reason for you avoiding that lap?
I basically just didn't really warm the tires up anywhere near enough, and then got to turn basically 4, and the car just wasn't turning whatsoever. And when you had to change direction for 5, it just didn't want to do that, and I basically cut the track with the little chicane uphill. So yeah, couldn't really do much after that.
Yeah, unfortunate for you. That really put a damper on the night. But let's look back at the season on a whole. You do finish second. It is a solitary point, which must be pretty hard to deal with right now. But I'm sure if you have a look back, you can pick out some really, really good memories and races from the season. Just a quick comment on your season. It must be exciting to see these new names at the front challenging week in and week out.
Yeah, and hands down, this has been probably the closest run series we've ever done, just on with the championship and also on the track. I don't think we've ever seen racing this close before, so seeing that has been astonishing. And yeah, I think a lot of the guys on track have really matured with their racecraft, so it's a real delight actually racing around people and lap after lap changing positions, but still being on it, and having 6-7 guys able to get a win every race is pretty exciting. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully we do a sort of sprint series again with the GT3s.
Fantastic. Congratulations once again on a great recovery drive. Second place tonight and second place in the championship, Will Devenish.
Thank you.
And capping off third tonight, and what was a very good night for the loose sim sport outfit, Steve Burko. Steve, a great night from you. You've finally been finding some pace in that Bentley. Unfortunately, it's just come as the season's winding up.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I was actually quite happy with the Bentley. It had decent pace, and I think I just really started to get into practicing it lately, and yeah, just started finding pace with the car, and yeah.
Yeah, a great race from you guys at the end, and it kind of all the sea's kind of open for you with all three Bentleys, your Loose Sim Sport teammates, occupying the top three positions at the end of lap one. What was the strategy from there? Did you guys talk about what the plan was, or did you allow Peter to get away, or was it just serendipity that it all worked out like that?
Well, we were very lucky or very fortunate not to be involved in the incident. We saw Lewis spin in front of us, and Zach just sort of followed me through. And luckily enough, I saw Pete ended up being near us as well. So we knew that Pete needed to get the victory. Um, so we spoke about it on the back straight pretty much, and just said, "Yep, you're going, and I'm going to do my best to hold second, and Zach could hold third. If anything came to light, like one of us would have an error, the other one would pick up the slack. So it was good.
Yeah, and you almost held on for that second place. A very willing battle between both you two and Will Devenish at the end. Just take us through that sequence where you passed Will in the chicane and then the return pass around the outside at turn one. That was cracking stuff.
Yeah, I ended up getting a great run on the back straight, and I'd seen that he was going to cover one side, so I feigned going to the right, and then as he moved to the right, I went to the left. Luckily, I managed to find my brake marker, and I managed to just stop it in time, get it in the second gear, and still giving as much room as I could. I think I may have moved a little bit too much, but in return, I gave the inside of that second chicane, and I don't know how he got past me at turn one the way he did. That was an amazing overtake. Yeah, hands. I'll put my hands up to them and say that is just awesome.
Fantastic. Congratulations on third place tonight, Steve Burko.
Thank you very much.
And guys, to finish off the season, we had a pair of fantastic races with storylines throughout. What a GT3 sprint season we have had.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting season and a very fun season. You start off in Okayama, 12 weeks ago, it's 3 months ago now. It's
wow.
gone quite quickly, and Peter Savage, definitely a deserving champion. He was, as we mentioned multiple times, he's the pole sitter, and he's just done so well all the way throughout. We've seen Lime Mitch break his fourth hoodoo and start to get some very good results and very good non-fourth results. And we've seen some very good up-and-coming drivers as well. We've seen Noah Tara with some excellent driving at the start of the season. It's a shame we didn't get to see him all throughout the whole series, but still some very good driving. We've seen Steve Burko really come alive at the end of this season as well. A couple of people who, just to mention, who haven't been here that often, but Luke Rosella had a couple of very good races at the Bend that were very fun to watch. And Lewis Wedding, unfortunately, bad luck, but when he was racing up the front, he was up there with the rest of them doing a very good job. It's been a great season to watch, and coming down to the final race, 1 point, and there was still always that opportunity for Will to come through and potentially take a fairy tale victory in the end, just so short. And Pete did everything he had to do to get this season, and it's been a brilliant season to watch.
Yeah, seconded from my point of view, guys. We entered into this season not knowing what the racing was going to be like. It was a unique concept. It was something that Mike Coulston had dreamt up at the beginning of the year, and we ran with it, and it's delivered some of the most astonishing racing that I've been privileged to broadcast, let alone commentate on throughout this year. Something that it was a venture into the unknown, we called it, back at Okayama 3 months ago. And, well, we can now say the adventure is over, and over with, I guess, mixed results, but also, in my point of view, a roaring success, something completely different that you don't see every day. Well, for the GT3 machinery, we unfortunately bid them adieu for the remainder of 2020. They go on the shelf. They go in to have a little bit of performance adjustments and other things going on with a view to possibly coming out again next year with some special events or some one-off series. We're not quite sure what is next in store for them. But what we do know is next in store is what's coming up for the remainder of this week. So tomorrow forms part of a triple header this week for Automobilista Australia, and the ATCC guys are at it again. So Sandown is the venue. Floody and Kiwi got to back themselves up from their endurance exploits of the Le Mans 24-hour this weekend just gone, and for Floody from tonight alone, and have to get themselves together for Sandown tomorrow night. And then back on this channel on Thursday night is the Supercars season. So that is the 250k race for the Supercars at Phillip Island. Now I do realise I've got a couple of the admin guys around the wrong way there, so I do apologise to them if they're watching this at the minute. Porsche Cup returns to its usual Tuesday night slot starting from next week, which means we're going to have some gaps on Tuesday nights. With the Porsche Cup taking a fortnightly slot, and the V8,
thank God,
and the V8 layout of the Surfers Paradise Street Circuit is going to be in store, so that'll be a little bit of carnage. I'm hoping the guys are going to behave themselves a bit there. And then we enter into October with the ATCC guys at Sydney Motorsport Park as they get toward the back end of the ATCC season. With Supercars on this channel on Thursday night coming up, once that is over, Supercars takes a little bit of a back seat as we hurtle towards this thing, the Bathurst 500 coming up in a month from now. A month today, actually, when you look at it. It's the 22nd of September today. 22nd of October is when we have qualifying night for the 500. Some really cool liveries already starting to come out for some of these cars. We're going to hope to have a little bit of a preview of some of them on Thursday night's broadcast. And don't forget, guys, there is only a limited amount of time left to get your registrations in for it. So registrations do close in about 2.5 weeks' time from now. So if I bring the date up for that one, the registrations close at midnight on Sunday, the 4th of October. And then we have the pit garage draw coming up in the week after that. So that determines where everybody ends up in pit lane on the night. Interesting to note, guys, Will Devenish and Pete Savage are actually teaming up for that one.
And I think they will make quite a competitive team if their V8 pace is in any way matched by their GT pace. I think they've been the absolute class of this season and shown ultimate respect to each other in every single race. We've seen them race tooth and nail almost every round, and I can't remember a moment where they've had contact that wasn't immediately redressed or in any way malicious. So I think that'll be a one to watch for the Bathurst 500.
Yeah, certainly will. Well, Bagsy, what's the one thing I guess we take out of this series? A very unique series, but what's the one thing we take out of GT3 in general this year for AMS Oz?
Really, the biggest thing to take apart is that the driving and the racing has been brilliant, and thank you to all the drivers for all the racing you've done, because it's been a pleasure to watch and commentate on. And 100% we've seen the quality of driving improve even more than what it was already quite good, but it's improved to another level, and some of the racing we've seen has been absolutely top class.
Couldn't agree with you more. For the final time in 2020, please, as always, drive safely, bid farewell to these GT3 cars, and we'll pick them up again in the future. But we'll see you back on this channel in 2 nights for Supercars at Phillip Island. Bye for now.